Chapter 44:37. If they didn't let it go, it would seem like they weren't being generous enough. Public opinion would shift towards the other side. Okay, since head escort high says so, then we won't say anything else. However, it's been a full 3 joss sticks worth of time. We've used so many methods to no avail. According to the rules, our escort agency should get 100 points. There's no doubt about that, right? Qi Mingyuan immediately said. Boundless, C lowered his head in silence. He wanted to object, but after making such a big mistake, especially since the other side pretended to be magnanimous and didn't pursue the matter any further, how could he object? Even Boundless C was scared. Zhao Bufan and the others wouldn't touch him either. They could only silently agree. That's good. Qi Mingyuan nodded his head in satisfaction. He looked at Lin Yi, Qi Wenhan, and the others and smiled. Even though there were many twists and turns, the result was satisfactory. They had gotten 100 points, which far exceeded their expectations. Everyone thought that this farce had come to an end. Just as they were about to move on to the next agency, Lin Yi suddenly said, Everyone, please wait a moment. Isn't there a special challenge segment? I want to try it out. Is there anyone who wants to challenge me? If there is, I'll put the item back where it was. Everyone's eyes lit up. Right, this was the most important segment of this round. Taking out 100 points as a bet, there was a 200-point difference between entering and leaving. However, excitement was just excitement. If they couldn't find the item after so much effort, it was clear how difficult it was. How could a normal escort agency have the confidence to challenge him? I'll go. Boundless, C suddenly shouted. He had just suffered such a huge loss. He was worried that he wouldn't have a chance to get back at them. Who would have thought that this kid would actually deliver the opportunity to him? Okay. Lin Yi smiled calmly. He turned around and walked to Area 30. He hid the item again, walked out, and made an inviting gesture to Boundless C. Please. Humph. Kid, you don't think that your little trick is so brilliant that no one can break it, do you? Just now, I deliberately gave you a taste of the sweetness. My 4C's escort agency will definitely get this 100 points. Boundless C grinned sinisterly. He turned his head and ordered the 4C's escort agency's assistant, Go call Lai Jizi over! The crowd went into an uproar. Zhao Bufan and the others suddenly realized that Boundless C had a backup plan. No wonder he lowered his head. It wasn't like him at all. Lays around for a while. Qi Mingyuan and Qi Wenhan, father and son, asked. His expression immediately changed. What's wrong? Is this person very powerful? Lin Yi asked curiously. I can't say that he's powerful. His strength is just SO. However, he's an extraordinary person. It's said that he's very good at breaking all kinds of formations. He used to wander around primitive places like Lufeng Forest. I didn't expect him to seek refuge with the 4C's escort agency. Qi Wenhan explained. Good at breaking formations? Lin Yi was slightly taken aback and became even more puzzled. What does this have to do with the competition? Brotherling, didn't you use a formation to hide the delivery? Qi Wenhan couldn't help but lower his voice. He was thinking the same thing as Boundless C and the others. He felt that Lin Yi must have set up a small camouflage to hide the delivery, which was why so many people didn't see it. Who said that? Lin Yi glanced at him and immediately laughed. At this moment, in the distance, a sloppy uncle came. From head to toe, his clothes were dirty and tattered. He also had a pungent body odor. He looked like an old beggar. This person was the subordinate of the 4C's escort agency, Lai Jizi. After hearing Boundless C's explanation, Lai Jizi bared his yellow teeth. He looked up and down at Lin Yi and said disdainfully, These days there aren't many people who know how to use formations. Even if they do, it's just a small trick. It's not worth mentioning. It's fine to fool amateurs, but for an expert like me, I can see the problem with one glance. Uncle C, just you wait. After saying this, Lai Jizi curled his lips and strode into Area 30. Lin Yi looked at this guy and couldn't help but laugh. This is the strange person you guys were talking about. Strange people have their own strange appearances. You don't even know this? Have you really not seen the world, or what? Are you a frog at the bottom of a well? Boundless Sea sneered after hearing this. Who's the frog at the bottom of a well? We'll know soon enough. Lin Yi smiled faintly. He couldn't be bothered to argue. Haha, stubborn duck. Boundless Sea didn't waste any more words. He waited outside for Lai Jizi's good news. He thought it would be a piece of cake, but he didn't think that he would wait for 2 incense sticks worth of time. Time's up. Chief C, can you invite your master Lai out? Qi Mingyuan immediately said. The time limit for the challenge was 2 incense sticks worth of time. Go and call him out. Boundless Sea's heart skipped a beat. He didn't know what was going on inside, but he could only do as he was told. However, when he saw Lai Jizi come out empty-handed, his face immediately turned ashen. He didn't find it again. Uncle C, this you can't blame me for this. Apart from the large illusion formation outside, there really isn't any formation inside. There isn't any formation at all. Lai Jizi spread his hands helplessly. The crowd was in an uproar. Everyone looked at Lin Yi strangely. He couldn't find it anywhere. Now, even a formation could be ruled out. How did this guy hide the dart? Could it be that he was a professional in this field? Haha, thank you for the 100 points, Chief C. As a senior in the 4 Seas Escort Agency, you spared no effort to support our Heaven's Equal Escort Agency's junior. You really are an elder. We will gladly accept the 100 points. Qi Mingyuan said happily. Boundless Sea's face was as dark as the bottom of a pot, but it was too late to regret. They had only obtained 70 points in this round. In the end, they lost a whole 100 points. Not only did they not get a single point in the 4th round, they lost 30 points. This wasn't just a big loss, it was a loss of blood. In comparison, the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency had won this round. They had earned a whole 200 points, which was more than the total points of most escort agencies. It was enough to make people go crazy with jealousy. Next one. Boundless C didn't even want to look at Qi Mingyuan and the others. He turned his head and was about to go to the next house. At this moment, someone suddenly stood up and shouted, "You hit it so well. Why don't you give our Dragon Boat Escort Agency a chance, and let us try too?" The crowd was in an uproar. The person who spoke was the Dragon Boat Escort Agency's chief escort, Long Kiba. Chapter 4438. Read 336. As he spoke, Cheng Haonan and Wu Baoliang stared at Lin Yi maliciously. They had a ferocious expression, as if they wanted to swallow him alive. Lin Yi discreetly glanced at the 2 of them. He wasn't interested in Long Kiba, but he had to get rid of the other 2 before he left the southern continent. Especially when he saw the latter, he couldn't help but be slightly startled. He was the target of his trip. Lin Yi had seen Wu Baoliang's portrait on the wanted poster from the law enforcement hall. Although it was his first time seeing him in person, he could recognize him at a glance with his iconic triangular yin-yang eyes. Lin Yi had known for a long time that Wu Baoliang would also participate in the South Continent Escort Agency's event. Unfortunately, from yesterday until now, he had only seen Long Kiba and Cheng Haonan, but he had not seen Wu Baoliang. Perhaps Wu Baoliang was regarded as their last trump card, so he stayed in the inn and did not come out at all. But now he probably saw an opportunity, so he was temporarily pulled over. This guy is finally willing to show himself. Lin Yi sneered in his heart and secretly clenched his fists. After holding it in for so long, he couldn't help but feel a little unable to restrain his killing intent. However, in the end, he didn't act rashly. Young Heroling, you decide. Qi Mingyuan looked at Lin Yi. He didn't know how Lin Yi had done it. He was afraid that it would ruin their plan, so he didn't dare to make a decision. Hee, Since someone has taken the initiative to give us points, of course, the more the better. Lin Yi smiled indifferently. You sure talk big. Then I'll let you open your eyes wide and see who's giving away points. Long Kiba waved his hand and said to Cheng Haonan and Wu Baoliang, you too. Let's go in and take a look. Let's see what this kid is up to. With that, Long Kiba led his men straight to the 30th area. There weren't many people, just him, Cheng Wu, and the other two. Although they weren't part of the bandit group, there was still a huge commotion earlier. They had already heard everything that was going on inside, so there was no point in bringing more people. He only needed Wu Baoliang, and that would be enough. The three of them walked into Area 30. At this moment, this small area that was surrounded by darkness was already a mess. The small cargo ship had been dismantled into pieces of broken wooden planks, floating on the surface of the sea. Even the surrounding reefs had been cut into pieces by Jinqi. Moreover, the seawater was muddy. It was obvious that the bottom of the sea had been stepped on by someone, and the sand and mud underneath had all been turned over. Hee, you sure did a thorough search. Long Kiba laughed coldly. If it was anyone else who saw this scene, their heart would definitely skip a beat. If even this could not be found, it meant that it would be difficult to find. However, he was not worried at all. It's up to you now. The reason why he called Wu Baoliang over at the last minute was because Cheng Haonan had said that this military advisor had a unique skill that could be used to find things in this kind of competition. It's a piece of cake. Wu Baoliang's aura suddenly exploded. At first glance, it seemed like he was only at the golden core great perfection. However, immediately after, Area 30 suddenly turned upside down. Seawater, sand, and broken wood, everything in the area suddenly flew into the air as if they had lost the shackles of gravity. The entire area became a weightless world. Immediately after, Wu Baoliang slowly clenched his palms. Everything in the air instantly went berserk and collided with each other violently. Originally, it was only fragmented, but after the collision, it became even more fragmented, until it was nothing more than a grain of rice. The military advisor is indeed an expert. I have never seen or heard of such a magical skill. Long Kiba suddenly had an eye-opener. If they were to really fight, although his strength was not weak, it was limited to direct fighting and killing. He did not have such a powerful and magical skill like Wu Baoliang. It's just a piece of cake. This skill is called All Things Kill. Anything with a slightly weaker quality will eventually be crushed into powder by something stronger. The treasure chest is made of special dark steel. If I'm not mistaken, its quality should be the strongest. So when All Things Kill is over, the only thing left is the treasure chest. Wu Baoliang smiled mysteriously. In front of the military advisor's All Things Kill, including the formation, everything will be destroyed. Any concealment method will be ineffective. As long as it is hidden here, it will definitely be revealed, Cheng Haonan added. With his relationship with Wu Baoliang, he was very clear about these methods. Ha ha ha, then I'll wait to celebrate for you, military advisor. After this round of competition, our Dragon Boat Escort Agency will jump to second place in the standings. We will surpass the Heavens Equal Escort Agency. Long Kiba laughed proudly. As expected, it will happen soon. Wu Baoliang's triangular yin-yang, I revealed a hint of pride as he commented. However, this Ling Yi is quite skilled. He was able to hide the package, so well that normal methods wouldn't be able to find it. No wonder Boundless See, and the others suffered. Isn't this a small trick in front of the military advisor? The Heavens Equal Escort Agency only knows how to play tricks. They will never be able to show off. This time, let them have a taste of kicking an iron plate. Cheng Haonan laughed coldly. While the three of them were chatting, the All Things Kill hanging in the air finally ended. Anything with a slightly weaker quality had already lost its shape. Even the rocks had been crushed into powder. The pure shall rise, the corrupted shall fall. Under Wu Baoliang's control, the all things kill hanging in the air slowly separated into two layers. The slightly lighter ones all floated up, and the slightly heavier ones all sank. During this separation process, anything that had a shape could be seen clearly. The treasure chest had to be among them. Long Qiba, Cheng Haonan, and Wu Baoliang all stared at all this with wide eyes, hoping to find the treasure chest that they had expected. However, even after the separation, there was nothing. This. Wu Baoliang choked for a long time, unable to say a proper sentence. Long Qiba and Cheng Haonan were also dumbfounded. Just a moment ago, they had the demeanor of an expert. They were so confident and calm, but they still couldn't find the treasure chest? Weren't they making a fool of themselves? Military advisor, what should we do now? Long Qiba was completely flustered. Because they didn't get a single point in the second round. The Dragon Boat Escort Agency only got a total of 160 points in the first 3 rounds. Even if they included this round, they would only get 50 points in the time it takes for an incense stick to burn. That would only add up to 210 points. To be continued. Chapter 4439. If they gave the Heavens Equal Escort Agency another 100 points, wouldn't they only be left with 110 points? After 4 rounds of competition, they had only scored 110 points. Even if this score did not put them at the bottom of all 32 escort agencies, it was still at the bottom. Yet, they still wanted to become one of the top 5 escort agencies and replace the Heavens Equal Escort Agency. Wouldn't that be laughable? Don't worry. My destruction of all things cannot go wrong. As long as the item is hidden inside, it will definitely be enveloped by it. There's no way it can escape. Wu Baoliang forced himself to calm down. Then what do we do now? Cheng Haonan and Long Qiba couldn't help but look at each other. There's one possibility. The quality of the Xian iron used to create this treasure chest isn't up to standard, so it was destroyed by the destruction of all things. Wu Baoliang pinched his chin. Yes. Xian iron itself is very rare. This item is just a symbolic item for the competition. The 4 Seas Escort Agency might have used some low-quality Xian iron to make up for the difference in price. Long Qiba immediately agreed. The 4 Seas Escort Agency was the host agency of this year's Grand Assembly. After receiving a large sum of funds, all the supplies were provided by them. No matter who it was, they would want to make a profit from this. But if that's the case, what do we do? Cheng Haonan frowned. Those people outside didn't care what methods you used. Only by taking out the treasure chest would you be able to prove that you had found the sealed package. Otherwise, it would be nonsense to say that everything was about length, style, literature, and learning. Yes, military advisor, do you have a plan? Long Qiba looked like he had a headache. Kiki, I do have a plan. Wu Baoliang rolled his eyes and laughed sinisterly. In any case, there definitely isn't a treasure chest here. After we go out, we just have to make a false accusation that Ling Yi destroyed it. I'm sure he won't be able to take it out. When that happens, we won't be able to explain ourselves. Yes, I think that Boundless Sea suffered a huge loss. He definitely won't accept it. When the time comes, he will definitely help us deal with Ling Yi. We'll naturally be in an invincible position. Cheng Haonan's eyes lit up and nodded. Military advisor, what a brilliant plan. Let's do that. Long Qiba was instantly overjoyed. After the 3 finished discussing, Wu Baoliang took the lead, followed by Long Qiba and Cheng Haonan. They immediately rushed out aggressively. Wu Baoliang strode in front of Lin Yi and pointed at Lin Yi's nose. He said fiercely, "When you put the escort back just now, I saw you. Did he take the opportunity to destroy it?" "It was destroyed just now." When Boundless Sea heard this, he shivered and joined in. "Okay, I was wondering why even Master Like couldn't find him." "So it was you who was secretly messing around. Men, arrest him." As soon as he finished speaking, the experts from the Four Seas Escort Agency immediately surrounded Lin Yi. They had always disliked Lin Yi, and now they finally had a chance to vent their anger. Seeing this, Chung Haonan and Long Kiba were overjoyed. Sure enough, Boundless Sea was a ready-made fighter. What do you want? Are you trying to bully the Equal Heaven Escort Agency? Qi Mingyuan roared. Qi Wenhan also hurriedly led the people of the Equal of Heaven Escort Agency over. Both sides faced each other, their aura surging, and the atmosphere was extremely tense. It looked like a bloody battle was about to begin. Everyone, please calm down. At this moment, Lin Yi stood out. After everyone calmed down, he looked at Wu Baoliang and said, "Let me give you a word of advice. Next time, before pointing your finger at me, write your will. Also, what evidence do you have?" Evidence? Wu Baoliang laughed evilly. "I knew you would use this to brush me off. It's very simple. I dare say that even you can't take out the escort treasure chest from inside. This is the best evidence. Okay, as the judge of the conference, I order you to go inside and take out the escort treasure chest. If you can't do it, then don't blame me for being impolite. Our South Continent Escort Agency Conference is not a place for a nameless brat like you to play tricks." Boundless Sea said forcefully. "Chief Escort High, some people like to fart. You don't have to come so close to smell it, do you? Or could it be that you can't afford to lose, so you're using this opportunity to find an excuse to take revenge?" Qi Mingyuan stood out bravely. Qi Wenhan and the others did not show any weakness, each of them standing in front of Lin Yi. Looking at their backs, Lin Yi couldn't help but feel moved. Coming to South Continent was really worth it, being able to get to know such a group of people. "Chief Escort High and everyone else, don't be anxious." Lin Yi patted everyone's back, walked to the front, and said, "This matter isn't that complicated. Since they want evidence, then I'll give them evidence. Isn't it just taking out the escort treasure chest? I'll take it for you now. Open your dog eyes wide and look carefully." After saying this, Lin Yi immediately separated the crowd and walked towards Area 30. However, he was stopped by Wu Baoliang. "Wait, just to be safe, I think it's better to search them first before going in. Otherwise, why don't you sneak the escort treasure chest in and claim that you took it out from inside? Makes sense, search them." Boundless Sea immediately agreed. The escort treasure chest was not small, but it was not big either. A normal person would not be able to smuggle it in, but if it was a golden core expert who knew how to camouflage, it might be possible. "You're going too far." Qi Wenhan couldn't stand it anymore. The other side's intentions were clear. They were clearly here to pick a fight. Lin Yi looked deeply at Wu Baoliang, killing intent flashing in his eyes. If he wasn't afraid of implicating the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency, he would probably have killed them already. However, now was not the time for that. "Okay, I'll satisfy you. However, for the sake of fairness, I request an unrelated notary to search me. As for you guys, I'm afraid that you'll frame me." Lin Yi's tone carried a hint of ridicule. The representatives of the Chamber of Commerce here can all be notary witnesses. There shouldn't be any problems with them searching me, right? Boundless Sea snorted coldly and immediately had a group of representatives search Lin Yi's body. Lin Yi cooperated. In front of everyone, he let them search him a few times. After confirming that there was nothing, Boundless Sea, Wu Baoliang, and the others finally let him go. They stared at Lin Yi as he walked into Area 30. If the rules didn't forbid it, they would have gone in to monitor him. "I want to see what kind of tricks this kid can come up with." Wu Baoliang, Long Kiba, and Chung Haonan sneered. He had even used all things kill, but he still couldn't find the escorted item. This proved that there was either nothing inside or it had been destroyed by him. Otherwise, the world would have gone mad. However, when they saw Lin Yi walk out with the escort in one hand, Wu Baoliang and the others felt the world spin. F***CK has the world gone mad? To be continued. Chapter 4440. You've given up now. Lin casually threw the escort on the ground. Everyone's eyelids twitched. Then he said calmly, "You can settle the bill now." Say it in a small way. Huh. Everyone was taken aback for a moment before they realized that he was referring to the points he was referring to. What kind of trick did you use? Wu Baoliang didn't give up. His triangular eyes emitted a dangerous light. He was about to rush forward and grab Lin Yi's collar. You can give it a try. Lin Yi suddenly laughed. He was just worried that he didn't have a chance to kill his opponent. If this guy took the initiative to attack him, he could justifiably kill the scum in front of everyone. At the same time, Qi Mingyuan, Qi Wenhan, and the others suddenly emitted killing intent, forcing Wu Baoliang to stop midway. If he didn't stop, these people would really attack together and kill him. Humph. I'll find out soon enough when you die in my hands. Wu Baoliang laughed cruelly. After looking deeply at Lin Yi, he said something to Cheng Haonan and Long Qiba, then turned and left. Looking at Wu Baoliang's back, Lin Yi couldn't help but feel pity. This guy was arrogant, but he wasn't stupid. Of course, if he was really stupid, he wouldn't have lived until today. He would have fallen into the law enforcement hall's hands in the northern part of the island. Chief Escort High, you have nothing to say now, right? Lin Yi turned to Boundless Sea and said. Boundless Sea's face was ashen. He didn't even say a word. He coldly snorted and turned to leave. Looking at his posture, he was too lazy to search the next two escort agencies. He wasn't in the mood to do so. Lin Yi, Qi Mingyuan, and Qi Wenhan looked at each other and smiled. Then he turned to the crowd and said, "Which other escort agency is willing to challenge me?" F***CK. Everyone's faces darkened. You've already earned a whole 300 points in this round. You've dragged the Four Seas Escort Agency and the Dragon Boat Escort Agency into the pit, and you're still not satisfied? You still want to take advantage of me? Lin Yi's gaze swept over the remaining people in charge of the escort agencies. They couldn't help but shrink their necks. There was definitely a trick to this, but it was definitely not something that could be solved in a short period of time. Only a fool would fall for it. That's it. Forget it then. Lin Yi was a bit disappointed. Since no one came to challenge him, there was no need to return the escort. As for the bandits, even though their leader, Boundless Sea, was gone, the match still had to continue. Zhao Bufan and the others were still there. He immediately turned to the next escort agency. Brotherling, can you tell me now? Where are you hiding? Seeing that everyone had gone far away, and that his own father, Qi Mingyuan, had also followed them, Qi Wenhan hurriedly rushed over. Compared to the excitement of obtaining 300 points, he was actually more curious about this matter. It's a secret. Lin Yi smiled and didn't say anything else. The answer was simple. He just casually put it into the space of the jade pendant. Of course, no one would be able to find it. However, this answer could not be told to anyone. It could only remain a secret forever. Qi Wenhan felt like 100 claws were scratching at his heart. However, Lin Yi refused to relent. There was nothing he could do. No amount of coaxing or pestering would work. In the end, he could only bitterly give up. However, he quickly threw this matter to the back of his mind. This was because the bandits had already found the other two escort agencies' escorts. At this point, the fourth round of the Hidden Darts competition was over. Everyone returned to Magic Cold Plaza. At this point, the publicly announced rankings were already over. After 4 rounds of competition, the Heavens Equal Escort Agency had a super high score of 670 points. Their advantage was so great that everyone could only look up to them in awe. Next, in second place, was the traditional powerhouse Divine Wind Escort Agency with a total of 270 points. Although it was far from being able to compare to the outstanding Heavens Equal Escort Agency, it still trampled on the other escort agencies. As for the Four Seas Escort Agency, who was originally in second place because they had challenged the Heavens Equal Escort Agency in the fourth round of competition, not only did they not manage to keep the 70 points they had earned, but they also lost 30 points. In the end, after 4 rounds of competition, they had a total of 240 points. They were tied for third place with the other 5 major escort agencies. It was worth mentioning that the ambitious Dragon Boat Escort Agency had a total of 110 points in 4 rounds of competition. They were ranked 5th from the bottom. If this trend continued, they would be ranked among the 5 weakest escort agencies in the South Continent, let alone competing for a spot in the top 5 escort agencies. On the publicly announced rankings, the 32 escort agencies' scores were clear at a glance. Some were happy while others were sad. Now, the focus of everyone's discussion was naturally on the Heavens Equal Escort Agency, the super dark horse of this competition. Although it was one of the 5 major escort agencies in the previous competition, most people did not have high hopes for the Heavens Equal Escort Agency in the beginning. The bets were unanimously against the Heavens Equal Escort Agency, with at least 7 out of 10 people betting on it falling out of the top 5 escort agencies. Of course, these people were already crying their hearts out. After 4 rounds of competition, the Heavens Equal Escort Agency had scored 670 points, pulling a huge gap of 400 points from the second place. This was definitely unprecedented. Unless there was a catastrophic accident, the Heavens Equal Escort Agency, which originally belonged to the Four Seas Escort Agency, had already fallen into the hands of the Heavens Equal Escort Agency in this competition. From this competition onward, the power structure of the escort agency industry in the South Continent would undergo earth-shattering changes. The focus would shift from the dark, cold territorial waters to the previously unknown green arc territorial waters. From then on, the Heavens Equal Escort Agency would replace the Four Seas Escort Agency as the #1 wealthy and influential agency in the South Continent. This was the consensus of almost everyone. Of course, other than the mainstream public opinion, there were naturally many other opinions. People who wholeheartedly criticized the Heavens Equal Escort Agency could still be seen. Regardless of whether these people were backed by other escort agencies, at least their arguments were not without reason. Looking at the previous South Continent Escort Agency Grand Meetings, although the first 4 rounds of competition were important as they could establish an advantage and widen the gap between the two sides, the real deciding event was still the last round. Although the Heavens Equal Escort Agency currently had a huge advantage, if they performed poorly in the final round of the competition, other escort agencies would take advantage of the situation and overtake them. Even the latecomers might overtake them. Only the escort agency that survived the 5th round of the competition and had the last laugh would be the true winner. Of course, the 5th round of competition would only begin the next day. At least for today, the Heavens Equal Escort Agency was undoubtedly the most popular and the most popular agency among the chambers of commerce. Compared to the various discussions in the market, none of the 32 escort agencies, including the Heavens Equal Escort Agency, dared to let their guard down at this time. All of them were training their troops and making their final preparations for the final battle tomorrow. Floating Astronomy. Chapter 44-41. No, we can't go on like this. We must take action immediately. We must kill Ling Yi. Long Kiba couldn't help but roar. Plus, there were still 3 people in the room. Cheng Haonan and Wu Baoliang were sitting to one side and drinking tea. However, because Long Kiba hammered the table, the rare spirit tea had spilled all over the floor. They vowed to become one of the top 5 escort agencies and replace the Heavens Equal Escort Agency. For this, they even formed an alliance with the Poison Eye Mercenaries. Their dreams were great, but unfortunately, reality was cruel. There was only 1 round left in the conference, and they achieved their ambition of becoming one of the top 5, but unfortunately they were at the bottom. It's not difficult to kill Ling Yi. The difficult part is how to find an opportunity to do so. Wu Baoliang said with a gloomy expression. The scene that happened today had completely disgraced him. He had clearly used the all things mutually kill, such a foolproof move. But in the end, he was still fooled by Ling Yi. This was unbearable. More importantly, it was the first time the two of them had met face to face. However, for some unknown reason, he faintly felt that Ling Yi actually had a killing intent towards him. Because of his special cultivation method, his senses were much sharper than an ordinary expert in the Golden Core realm. There was no mistake about this. Was it because the other side hated the Poison Eye mercenaries, so he hated them too? This was not impossible, but Wu Baoliang's intuition told him that this matter was not that simple. In short, whether it was to kill this hidden danger or to remove the obstacle for the Dragon Boat Escort Agency, Ling Yi, who suddenly appeared, had to die. But we have no right to set the rules of the competition, and it's difficult to think of a way to manipulate the situation. Whether we can defeat the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency, especially against Ling Yi, everything depends on luck. It's hard to say. Long Kiba scratched his head with a conflicted expression. Not necessarily. We can't do it ourselves. But someone can do it, Wu Baoliang said meaningfully. Who? Long Kiba was stunned. Brother Long, did you forget the Four Seas Escort Agency? Cheng Haonan sneered from the side. From today's situation, it seems that besides us, Boundless Sea also hates this Ling Yi to the bone. It's just that he doesn't dare to brazenly do so. You two mean to go to the Four Seas Escort Agency to find Boundless Sea? Long Kiba's eyes lit up. That's right. Their Four Seas Escort Agency has always been the hegemon of the South Continent's escort agencies. I heard that most of the competition rules were set by Boundless Sea. Isn't it a piece of cake for us to go up against the equal of Heaven Escort Agency? Cheng Haonan laughed. Yeah. Long Kiba slapped his head and said happily, if we had gone to him for help before today, Boundless Sea might not have responded to us. But now, he will definitely help us with this small favor. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. This phrase has been tried and tested many times. Without further ado, Long Kiba and the other two discussed the matter. He immediately set off for the Four Seas Escort Agency, asking to see Boundless Sea. While the three handed over their name cards and waited to be notified, Boundless Sea was smashing cups in his study. Next to him was an exquisite tea set. One by one, they threw them on the ground, and the sound of banging rang out incessantly. This was Boundless Sea's habit. Whenever he was in a bad mood, he would smash the tea set. After venting out most of the evil fire, his mood naturally calmed down. The servants stood to the side, trembling with fear, waiting for Boundless Sea to finish smashing. They had to quickly clean up the broken pieces on the ground. Otherwise, if Boundless Sea got annoyed and got angry again, they might be the ones to suffer. When Boundless Sea finished smashing, his anger subsided. The guard, who had been waiting to the side, didn't miss the opportunity to hand over Long Kiba's and the other's name cards to Boundless Sea. Dragon Boat Escort Agency? What are these people doing here? Boundless Sea frowned slightly as he looked at the name card. Although the Dragon Boat Escort Agency wasn't the weakest in the South Continent, they had always been suppressed by the equal of Heaven Escort Agency. They had never had a chance to stand out, so naturally they weren't worthy of his attention. Uncle C, do you want me to send them away? The guard at the door suggested after observing the situation. The Southern Continent Escort Agency Festival was being held here. These days, the heads of all the escort agencies would come to the Four Seas Escort Agency to pay their respects. The stronger large escort agencies were able to see Boundless Sea. As for the smaller escort agencies, they were all sent away with just a word. They didn't even get to see Boundless Sea's face. Wait. Boundless Sea hesitated for a moment, then made a decision. Take them to the small hall and wait. Yes, the guard replied and left. He couldn't help but feel surprised. This unknown dragon boat escort agency had some weight in Uncle C's heart. Even though they didn't have the right to enter the main hall, they could at least enter the small hall and not be sent away with just a word. What they didn't know was that Boundless Sea didn't care about the dragon boat escort agency at all. The reason why he agreed to meet them was purely because of what happened during the day. He felt that there might be something more to it. Long Kiba and the other two were led into the small hall. No one came over to serve tea, and no one came over to talk to them. They just waited like this for a quarter of an hour. When the three of them were filled with anger and couldn't hold it in any longer, Boundless Sea finally arrived. Dragon Boat Escort Agency's Long Kiba, Poison I Mercenaries Chung Haonan, and Wu Bao Liang greet Chief Escort Sea. Although they were unhappy, they didn't dare to be negligent in front of Boundless Sea. They hurriedly stood up and greeted him. Please sit. I was talking to an important guest just now. Sorry for the delay. Please don't take it to heart. Boundless Sea chuckled. This was *T. In reality, he was just drinking tea in his study. He just wanted to ignore the three of them. Chief Escort Sea, you have many matters to attend to. Please forgive us for disturbing you. Long Kiba hurriedly smiled apologetically. You're being too polite. Why did the three of you come to my 4C's escort agency? Boundless Sea couldn't be bothered to waste words with the three of them. He went straight to the point. Long Kiba was stunned when he heard this. He looked at Chung Haonan and Wu Baoliang. They were clearly caught off guard. He originally wanted to exchange a few more pleasantries to get closer to them and increase their chances of success before talking about the matter. All right, let's not beat around the bush. Since Chief Escort C has come straight to the point, we won't beat around the bush. Long Kiba simply said, One doesn't come to a temple without a cause. We came here to ask Chief Escort C for a small favor. Chapter 44-42. That's right. I hope Chief Escort C can help us arrange an opponent for the upcoming match. Long Kiba blurted out, Humph, you want me to throw the match? Boundless C's expression changed, and he said coldly, Don't even think about it. The Southern Continent Escort Association's grand gathering has always been fair and impartial. No cheating is allowed. Otherwise, the grand gathering would lose its purpose. Please leave. Wait. Boundless C was about to send them off when Chung Haonan hurriedly said, Chief Escort C, please wait. We want you to arrange an opponent for us. It's none other than the Heavens Equal Escort Agency. Heavens Equal Escort Agency? Boundless C's movements paused. These were the words he didn't want to hear the most. When he thought of how badly he had suffered, he couldn't help but be furious. That's right. The one we want to deal with the most is Heaven's Equal Escort Agency's Ling Yi. Chief Escort C. You've also suffered at his hands before. I'm sure you hate him to the bone. We can work together, Chung Haonan quickly said. He saw Ling Yi as a thorn in his side. In order to deal with Ling Yi and avenge his son, he was willing to pay any price. If he missed this opportunity, it would be too late for regrets. Oh, Boundless C slowly put the teacup back down. He didn't continue to chase them away. Instead, he fell into deep thought. As expected, there's a chance. Long Kiba and the others looked at each other. Their spirits rose and their hearts settled. Tell me, why do you want to deal with Ling Yi? Boundless C's fingers drummed rhythmically on the table as he looked up at the three. If it weren't for Chung Haonan's words, he would definitely have chased them away. After all, the 4C's escort agency's name was still there. If these people didn't keep their mouths shut and spoke carelessly, it would be easy for them to cause trouble. Even if it was just for his image, Boundless C had to maintain his impartiality. However, the Heavens Equal Escort Agency and Ling Yi were two different matters. Cheng Haonan was right. He hated Ling Yi to the bone. The Four Seas Escort Agency had fallen from being the overlord of the escort agencies that was at its zenith to its current state of being overshadowed. It was ranked third on the scoreboard, almost falling out of the top 5. This was the main culprit behind all of this. It was Ling Yi. It would not be an exaggeration to say that out of the 670 points that the Heavens Equal Escort Agency had obtained, at least 500 points had come directly from Ling Yi. This person's ability was so abnormal that it could not be viewed with common sense. After suffering at his hands twice in a row, even Boundless Sea had to admit that as long as Lingwen was there, the chances of his Four Seas Escort Agency turning the tables were minuscule. But now, a hired thug had delivered himself to his doorstep. He didn't mind adding fuel to the fire and killing with a borrowed knife. During the day, Boundless Sea had seen the conflict between Long Kiba and Ling Yi. Therefore, they believed that they had the foundation to become allies. However, before that, they had to first figure out the specific situation. Otherwise, it wouldn't be like using a borrowed knife to kill someone. Instead, he had become the knife in the other party's hand. Chief Escort High, you might not know this, but our Dragon Boat Escort Agency and the Poison Eye Mercenary Group are located in the same city as their Heavens Equal Escort Agency. We've always been incompatible like fire and water. It's not the first time we've fought and killed each other. Long Kiba hurriedly explained. Haha, there can't be two tigers on one mountain. Boundless Sea raised his eyelids. This wasn't strange at all. People of the same trade were enemies. With two escort agencies squeezed together, it would be strange if they could get along. As for the Poison Eye Mercenary Group, there was an unwritten rule in the South Continent seas. All the so-called mercenary groups were actually the original pirate groups that had been whitewashed. Therefore, there was usually a blood feud between them and the local escort agencies. It was normal for them to be like fire and water. Not only that, my only son, Qin Tian, died in the Heavens Equal Escort Agency. He was killed by this Lingwen. Chief Escort High, tell me, how could I let this bastard go? Cheng Haonan added, gnashing his teeth. Oh, there's such a thing? Boundless Sea was moved. The hatred of his son's death was absolutely irreconcilable. Looking at Cheng Haonan's expression, he wouldn't joke about this. Chief Escort High, in front of me I don't dare to lie. Therefore, in order to avenge my son's death, I beg Chief Escort High to open the door of convenience and let me kill my enemy. This Cheng will be eternally grateful. Cheng Haonan was a smart person. He no longer talked about the hatred between the Four Seas Escort Agency and Lingwen. Instead, he shifted the blame to himself. Your request is reasonable. Boundless Sea's expression was unfathomable. Long Kiba and the others thought he was going to agree and were overjoyed. They didn't expect him to suddenly change the topic. However, although our Four Seas Escort Agency suffered some losses in the Grand Meeting, this doesn't mean that we have to take revenge privately. It's taboo to destroy the public for personal reasons. The fairness of the Southern Continent Escort Agency's Grand Meeting will not be destroyed in my hands. Not in the past, not now, and not in the future. This dignified official reply left Long Kiba and the others dumbstruck. They couldn't help but look at each other. Wasn't this change a little too quick? Seeing that Boundless Sea was still speaking righteously and didn't seem like he was faking it, the three felt as if a bucket of cold water had been poured over their heads. They were immediately disappointed. Their little row already had the resolve to be the knife. They took the initiative to let the other side borrow the knife to kill them, but the other side didn't accept the knife. How were they supposed to play? Looking at the Southern Continent Escort Agency's Grand Meeting, only the 5 judges from the 5 great escort agency had the opportunity to play tricks in the open. The others were far from qualified. Unfortunately, Cheng Haonan and Wu Baoliang, these 2 amateurs, didn't need to be said. Even Long Kiba himself, because the Dragon Boat Escort Agency had always been weak, couldn't climb up to the higher branches of the 5 great escort agency. Now that he finally had the chance to use Ling Wen, a common enemy, to ask for Boundless Sea's help, he didn't expect to hit a wall. Things had already reached this point. Staying any longer would only make a fool of themselves. Long Kiba and the others looked at each other and could only salute Boundless Sea with flagging interest. If that's the case, then we won't disturb Chief Escort Sea any longer. We'll take our leave now. Wait, Boundless Sea suddenly stopped them. For the sake of justice, I definitely won't use my position to avenge a private grudge. However, seeing that you have a blood feud with me, this matter is pardonable. I can agree to help you secretly, but I can't be too biased. Do you understand? Chapter 44-43. As long as we can think of a way for our Dragon Boat Escort Agency to fight against their Heavens Equal Escort Agency, it would be best if we can challenge Ling Yi. That way, we can guarantee that he will die a horrible death. Chung Haonan said impatiently, "Is that true?" Boundless Sea was stunned. Although he had never seen Ling Yi in action, he had been in close contact with him. Moreover, as the chief escort of the #1 escort agency in South Continent, his judgment of people was far sharper than that of ordinary people. Even if he did not know how strong Ling Yi was, he could at least see that this person was not easy to deal with. If he, the chief escort, personally fought, it would not be a problem. However, the problem was that the strength of the South Continent's escort agency had to be limited to the Golden Core stage. Experts above the nascent soul stage were not allowed to participate. This was the biggest problem. That's right. Our military advisor is an eccentric person who specializes in practicing a unique skill. Although his strength is suppressed to the Golden Core Great Perfection, his true strength is not even a middle stage nascent soul stage's opponent. He is our trump card. There is no need to use him in the previous few matches, but the finals are coming up, so there is no need to hide anymore. As long as we arrange for Ling Yi to fight against our military advisor, that kid will definitely die. Chung Haonan pushed out the silent Wu Baoliang. "Oh, Your Excellency is so amazing." Boundless Sea suddenly became interested and looked at Wu Baoliang for the first time. In the South Continent Sea, the strength of a middle stage, nascent soul stage was already considered powerful. They could basically do whatever they wanted. However, an expert in the Golden Core Great Perfection had the strength of a middle stage, nascent soul stage. This was more than just rare. There was probably no such eccentric person in the entire Heaven Stage Island. With such strength, he was an invincible existence in the Golden Core stage. No matter how strong Ling Yi was, he could not be a match for such an eccentric person. You flatter me. It's just that my cultivation method is a little special. I can use a secret method to suppress my strength on the surface. Wu Baoliang pretended to be humble and cupped his hands. However, his pair of triangular yin and yang eyes could not hide the pride. This was actually a kind of helplessness, but he did not expect that it would come in handy now. Ever since North Island fled to South Continent, after getting to know the Chung family's father and son and joining the Poison Eye mercenary group, Wu Baoliang had not broken through. Of course, this was only limited to the realm on the surface. In fact, his real strength had been advancing by leaps and bounds. Otherwise, how could he live up to the name of an evil cultivator? He did not do it on purpose, but it was because of his latest improved version of the evil technique. It was only effective for those in the Gold Core stage. Once he broke through to the nascent soul stage, it was not that he couldn't continue to cultivate, but if he wanted to continue dual cultivation with those women, he would have to suck them to death on the spot. The reason why he was exposed in the North Island, it was because of the disappearance and death of a large number of women that they had no choice but to flee to the South Continent. Although the South Continent Sea region was notoriously chaotic, it was inevitable that they would be discovered if they repeated the same trick. If that was the case, even with the protection of the Poison Eye mercenary group, they wouldn't be able to survive. He could not stay in the South Continent for long. Chaos was chaos, but no place would openly tolerate the existence of evil cultivators. Even the seas of the South Continent were no exception. As a result, whether it was Wu Baoliang, Cheng Haonan, or even Cheng Qitian, who had already died to the divine nun of the East Sea, they all used a special secret technique to suppress their cultivation. Currently, their strength remained at the great perfection of golden core, but their true strength had already surpassed regular nascent soul cultivators. Wu Baoliang's strength had reached the peak of early nascent soul long ago, and with the power of his evil technique, he could still easily defeat opponents at higher cultivation levels than him, even if it was measured in terms of cultivation. In other words, regular mid-nascent soul cultivators were nowhere near Wu Baoliang's opponent, let alone mere golden core cultivators. As for Cheng Haonan, the captain of the Poison Eye mercenaries, he also practiced the evil technique that Wu Baoliang had developed and improved. Coupled with his powerful foundation from before, his strength was even greater than Wu Baoliang's. He could easily kill regular peak, mid, nascent soul cultivators instantly. Special cultivation method. Boundless C rolled his eyes and immediately burst into laughter as he exposed them. An evil technique is an evil technique. You're being so secretive in front of me. Is this the attitude you have when you're asking for help? This. Wu Baoliang was immediately alarmed. Cheng Haonan and Long Kiba's eyes were filled with unconcealable fear as well. They all looked at Boundless C cautiously, as if they were facing a great enemy. No matter where evil cultivators went, they would definitely be hated by everyone, which was why they would beat around the bush and use the excuse of a special technique. However, they never thought Boundless C would still see through it with a single glance. What were they to do? In the waters of the southern continent, the major escort agencies were undoubtedly the representatives of the righteous. As the saying goes, good and evil cannot coexist. If Boundless C really wanted to capture them, it would be a great contribution to the people. If news of this spread, the Four Seas escort agency's reputation would definitely soar. It was very likely that they would snatch the limelight back from the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency and change their previous decline. Thinking of this, the three could not help but break out in cold sweat. They were so focused on getting Boundless C's help that they forgot this fatal flaw. This was the headquarters of the Four Seas Escort Agency, where experts would definitely gather. If Boundless C really wanted to capture them, the three of them would not even have a chance to escape. This time they were in big trouble. Long Kiba was slightly better, but at this moment, Cheng Haonan and Wu Baoliang felt as if their hearts had fallen into an ice cellar. In their opinion, Boundless C was definitely a person who only cared about profit. If killing them was a great benefit to him, he would not let go of this opportunity. However, the situation was different from what Wu Baoliang and the others had imagined. Boundless C did not immediately make a move. Instead, he looked at the three of them from head to toe and suddenly asked with an unfathomable expression, "How strong is that Ling Yi?" HM. The three of them, who were on high alert, could not help but be stunned. They felt a little strange, but Wu Baoliang instantly reacted and quickly replied, "Very strong. On the surface, he looks like he is in the golden core stage, but our Poison Eye mercenary group's Old Kong is an expert at the peak of the early stage of the nascent soul stage. Now he has been crippled by him. Many people in Weiwan City know about this, so it is not difficult to verify. So troublesome?" Boundless C looked at him suspiciously and pinched his chin with one hand. After pondering for a moment, he said, "All right, I can arrange an opportunity for you to deal with Ling Yi." "Thank you, Chief Escort C." Wu Baoliang was immediately overjoyed, and he let out a sigh of relief. F***ck. The situation just now was too dangerous. He went around the gates of hell. If he was not careful, he would have died here today. Fortunately, his reaction was fast enough. If you like this work, you are welcome to cast a recommendation vote or monthly vote at Starting Point. Your support is my greatest motivation. For mobile users, please go to M. Chapter 4444. Chung Haonan and Long Kiba were stunned for a moment. Only then did they realize what was going on. They secretly gave Wu Bao Liang a thumbs up. If it wasn't for his timely answer, they would have been dead on the spot. It was obvious that Boundless Sea had wanted to kill them. After all, killing a few evil cultivators could make his 4C's escort agency famous. There was no reason not to do such a good thing. On the other hand, Boundless Sea didn't want to let go of the opportunity to deal with Ling Yi, so he suddenly asked, if Ling Yi was easy to deal with and his subordinates could deal with him, then he wouldn't need Wu Baoliang and the others to kill the evil cultivator. However, if Ling Yi wasn't easy to deal with and his subordinates couldn't deal with him, then he would need to weigh the pros and cons. Fortunately, Wu Baoliang's reaction was fast enough and his answer was witty enough, so they were able to escape. Boundless Sea didn't make a decision that was disadvantageous to them. The reason was simple. If Ling Yi could cripple a peak early-stage nascent soul expert, then a normal golden core expert wouldn't be able to deal with him. At least, they wouldn't have a 100% chance of winning. So, if Boundless Sea wanted to deal with Ling Yi, he could only borrow Wu Baoliang's hand. This way, he wouldn't be disadvantageous to them. In the end, the hatred for Ling Yi surpassed the benefits of killing the evil cultivator. Boundless Sea's decision allowed Wu Baoliang and the others to escape. I wonder what Chief Escort Hai's arrangements are. As soon as the crisis was averted, Chung Haonan hurriedly asked impatiently, tomorrow is the last round of the competition. The content isn't much different from the past. The entire day will be a challenge, Boundless Sea revealed. Oh, then, Chief Escort C, what are the rules of this challenge? Long Kiba asked. It wasn't just to deal with Ling Yi. He wanted to know the rules of the competition in advance, even if it was just one night earlier. It would also allow him to prepare more carefully, which would affect the final score. The 5th round of the competition is called the Escort Agency Free Challenge. Boundless C looked at the 3 and didn't hide it. It didn't affect him anyway, so it didn't matter if the 3 knew beforehand. At that time, each escort agency will have 2 chances to challenge other escort agencies. At the same time, they will also have 2 chances to fight. The bet for each match is 100 points. The winner gets 100 points. The loser loses 100 points. The stakes are so high. Long Kiba's eyes immediately lit up when he heard that. If he won all 4 matches, he would be able to obtain a total of 400 points. Especially if the points were plundered from the opponents, the difference would be even greater when the points were added together. Even though the Equal of Heaven Escort Agency was currently outshining the rest of the pack, with a huge gap of 400 points between them and the second-place team, if they played their cards right in the 5th round of the competition, even the Dragon Boat Escort Agency, which only had 110 points, would be able to win. It was not impossible to surpass it. That's right. The previous rounds were just small skirmishes. The last round is the real highlight. This has always been the rule of the South Continent's Escort Agency Grand Gathering. That's why you can use this opportunity to challenge the Equal Heaven Escort Agency. Boundless Sea nodded. Challenging the Equal Heaven Escort Agency is not a problem. However, what if Ling Yi refuses to accept the challenge? Chung Haonan and the others looked at each other worriedly. That was very likely to happen. Just like in the first round, Ling Yi did not personally participate. If it was the same tomorrow, Ling Yi would not be able to participate. If it was the same tomorrow, even if they could steal points from the Equal of Heaven Escort Agency, they would not be able to take the opportunity to kill Ling Yi. That would be too regretful. Don't be in such a hurry. What I just said were the original rules of the competition. However, in order to deal with Ling Yi, I can think of a way to add a special rule. Boundless C smiled mysteriously. Oh, what do you think, Chief Escort C? Cheng Haonan and the others cooperated and asked. I've already had people investigate beforehand. That Ling Yi's status in the Equal of Heaven Escort Agency is that of an honorary escort head. That's why, in addition to the regular competition, I can add an escort agency head challenge. Boundless C narrowed his eyes and sneered. An escort agency head challenge? Cheng Haonan and the others were stunned. They did not understand what he meant. It's very simple. The rules of this additional challenge are that all participants can directly challenge the golden core stage upper echelons of each escort agency, including the head escort, deputy escort head, and honorary escort head. Moreover, they can challenge them an unlimited number of times. The escort agency cannot refuse the challenge. After saying this, Boundless C could not hide his delight as he took a sip of the high-quality spiritual tea. Chang Haonan, Wu Baoliang, and Long Qiba digested this for a while before they finally understood the huge advantage this special rule brought them. That's great, Chief Escort C. This special rule is practically tailor-made for us. It's very practical. Long Qiba was overjoyed. Then, Chief Escort C, when the time comes, as long as we challenge the upper echelons of the Equal of Heaven Escort Agency, Ling, you will have to accept the challenge. Cheng Haonan and Wu Baoliang were also overjoyed. Of course. Otherwise, wouldn't my special rule be for nothing? Boundless C smiled coldly. Unless the Equal of Heaven Escort Agency forfeits and is willing to be removed from the Southern Continent Escort Agency Alliance, they will have to follow the rules. Haha, that's right. Chief Escort C is mighty. Cheng Haonan and the others laughed in agreement. Coming to the 4C's escort agency was the right decision. Even though there was a slight risk, if they hadn't come, how could they have had such a good opportunity to deal with Ling Yi? With just Cheng Haonan and the others' abilities, they might not have had a chance to deal with Ling Yi until the end of the conference. However, things were different in Boundless C's hands. He was the chief escort of the 4C's escort agency, the head of the 5 judges of the conference, and the one who set the rules of the game. If he wanted to do something to someone, it was too easy. Moreover, he would say it in a dignified manner. Even if the others were dissatisfied, they couldn't object. Status determined everything. This saying was not false at all. However, what if when the time comes, when we challenge the Equal of Heaven Escort Agency's upper echelons, Ling Yi still refuses to accept the challenge and send someone else to fight? Long Qiba was still a little worried. Even if Boundless C's special rule was passed, the Southern Continent Escort Agency Grand Conference was a competition between the 32 escort agencies. It wasn't just a display of one person's strength. No matter what competition it was, the premise was that the escort agency was participating. In other words, if Wu Baoliang really wanted to issue a challenge, he could at most challenge the upper echelons of the Equal of Heaven Escort Agency. It was unlikely that he would directly challenge Ling Yi. Otherwise, it would become purely a personal grudge. Where would the dignity of the Southern Continent Escort Agency Grand Conference go? To be continued. Chapter 44-45. Even Boundless, C wouldn't dare to be so brazen. He kept saying that he wanted to maintain fairness and impartiality. Not to mention, South Continent's Escort Agency Gala wasn't just his word. There were 4 other judges, and Qi Mingyuan was one of them. When the time came, he would definitely stand up and object. This might be a little troublesome, but it's not a big problem. From what I know, among the higher-ups of the Heavens Equal Escort Agency, only Qi Wenhan and Ling Yi are in the Golden Core stage. The others aren't, so if you challenge them, it'll be either Qi Wenhan or Ling Yi. Boundless C smiled. After suffering such a huge loss at Ling Yi's hands, he had done a lot of homework on the Heavens Equal Escort Agency. It could be said that he knew everything about the Heavens Equal Escort Agency. Only these two? Then it's easy to deal with them. Qi Wenhan is the young master in charge of the agency's affairs. He can't go himself, so the only one left is Ling Yi. Long Qiba immediately became happy. At the same time, he couldn't help but feel ashamed. As an old rival of the Heavens Equal Escort Agency, he didn't know as much as Boundless Sea. Boundless Sea was indeed worthy of being the overlord of South Continent's escort agencies. Even if Qi Wenhan goes himself, it doesn't matter. At worst, we'll beat him to the ground and force Ling Yi out. Wu Baoliang said arrogantly. Qi Wenhan and the likes were not in his eyes at all. Even Ling Yi, who had crippled old Kong, he had never truly taken him to heart. Originally, he had only wanted to take revenge for Cheng Qitian, but today Cheng Qitian had offended him, so he had no choice but to kill him. WW. Thinking of tomorrow's situation, Cheng Haonan and the others couldn't help but laugh at each other, as if they had won a great battle. Cheng Haonan did it for revenge, Wu Baoliang did it to vent his anger, and Long Qiba did it for the rise of the Dragon Boat Escort Agency. As long as they followed the script, there was a 90% chance that their plan would succeed. Maybe even more. This is all I can do to help you guys. Make good use of this opportunity. Don't let me down, Boundless Sea said with a smile. Don't worry, Chief Escort High. As long as we follow the plan, Ling Yi will definitely die. The Heavens Equal Escort Agency won't be able to be proud for long. Long Qiba and the other two nodded in unison and said, It's getting late, so we'll be taking our leave. Chief Escort High, just wait for a good show tomorrow. All right, take care. I won't send you off. Boundless Sea smiled as he saw the three of them off. Seeing the three of them leave, his lips suddenly curved into a mocking smile. A bunch of country bumpkins! Indeed, this special rule of the escort agency's helmsman challenge was something he had only thought of after seeing Cheng Haonan and the other two. At first glance, this special rule seemed to only target the Heavens Equal Escort Agency and Ling Yi. The biggest beneficiary was the Dragon Boat Escort Agency. This was because Wu Baoliang's strength was only at the Golden Core stage on the surface, but his actual strength was enough to fight against a nascent Soul Stage expert. It would be difficult for other escort agencies to find a second one like him. In a competition where only Golden Core experts could participate, this fellow was undoubtedly an undefeatable killing machine. It would be difficult for other escort agencies to contend against him. Under such circumstances, naturally, the Dragon Boat Escort Agency would have the last laugh. Not only would they be able to trample the Heavens Equal Escort Agency under their feet, but they would also be able to use this opportunity to rise to the top. It was not impossible for them to surpass the traditional wealthy families like the Four Seas Escort Agency. However, what kind of person was Boundless Sea? He was someone who had single-handedly managed the Four Seas Escort Agency to become the overlord of the Southern Continent's escort agencies. How could he be so stupid as to work for someone else? Especially when the three of them were strangers, and they were obviously up to no good. Whether it was Cheng Haonan, Wu Baoliang, or Long Qiba, none of them could be considered stupid. However, when these three were placed together with Boundless Sea, they were really just people who were still counting the money after being sold. Their schemes were not on the same level. The reason why he had proposed this special rule was naturally to deal with Ling Yi and achieve his goal of killing with a borrowed knife. On the other hand, it was to clear the obstacles for his own Four Seas Escort Agency. According to the results of the previous Southern Continent Escort Agency Grand Meetings, the strongest was undoubtedly the Four Seas Escort Agency. Especially since they were fighting on their home ground this time, Boundless Sea had long since thought that the #1 throne was already in his grasp. However, Boundless Sea had never expected that from the start of the second round, the competition would suddenly break out of his control, and even develop into such an awkward situation. Seeing that the last round of the competition was about to begin, it was obvious that he had no choice but to use some fierce medicine. In the end, Chung Haonan and the other two just happened to come up. In Boundless Sea's eyes, these three people from the Dragon Boat Escort Agency might be clowns, but they were still a ready-made, sharp knife. Not only could they kill Lin Yi, they could also take down the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency, which had suddenly emerged as a new force. And once the super dark horse Heaven's Equal Escort Agency was gone, which of the remaining escort agencies could be a match for his Four Seas Escort Agency? As for the Dragon Boat Escort Agency, when the time came, they would swallow up a large amount of points from the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency, even if they became the new super dark horse for a short period of time. So what? Boundless Sea wasn't worried about this at all. If it really came to that, all he needed to do was expose Wu Baoliang's identity as an evil cultivator, and the Dragon Boat Escort Agency would immediately collapse. Let alone become the new overlord of the escort agencies. It was unknown whether or not the Dragon Boat Escort Agency could survive the encirclement of all the other escort agencies. After all, escort agencies were publicly recognized as a righteous faction in the South Continent, which righteous faction would treat an evil cultivator as their trump card. If that wasn't seeking death, then what was? Therefore, no matter what, Boundless Sea felt that he was in an invincible position. As for Chung Haonan and the other two, they were really just pitiful worms that he had sold out and were still counting the money, for the night passed uneventfully. When the sun rose on the second day, Magic Cold Plaza was once again filled with people. The number of people who came from all directions to watch was clearly more than double that of the previous 2 days. Everyone knew that today was the last round of the competition. Who would have the last laugh and become the new overlord of the escort agencies? The mystery would be revealed today. This time, as usual, Boundless Sea appeared and announced the rules of this round to everyone. There weren't many areas that could be changed in the last round of the competition. The judges had already discussed it long ago. Even the spectators, as long as they had a deeper understanding of the South Continent's escort agencies, could roughly guess what was going to happen. However, there were still some people among the people in charge of the escort agencies who raised their doubts. They weren't like the others who were here to watch the show. They had to thoroughly understand the rules of the competition and couldn't make any mistakes. Otherwise, the entire escort agency would be at a disadvantage. Chief Escort High, since every escort agency only has 2 rights to challenge and 2 rights to be challenged, can we reject the opponent when we're being challenged? Chapter 44-46. One person stood up and asked. Another person also asked in a loud voice. Also, everyone knows that you have to pick the weakest persimmon. What if everyone picks the same opponent and there's a conflict? It's simple. If an escort agency is being challenged, they can't refuse the challenge until they've used up their 2 challenge rights. If more than one agency challenges one agency at the same time, then the agency being challenged can pick the opponent. Boundless Sea replied. With that said, everyone no longer had any doubts. Instead, their faces were filled with wariness. At the same time, they were secretly sizing up the other escort agencies, calculating their next course of action in their hearts. In this final round, the strength of the agency was important, but there was one more important thing: picking the opponent. This was the key to victory. There was no room for negligence. Just as everyone was rubbing their palms together, thinking that the match was about to begin, Boundless Sea suddenly added another rule. It was the same rule he had mentioned to Chung Haonan and the others last night. While everyone was busy digesting this new rule, the 4 referees sitting on the high platform were confused and puzzled. This challenge rule wasn't part of the discussion. They hadn't even heard of it. They hadn't expected Boundless Sea to suddenly do this. He was clearly going to act first and report later. With this, everyone thought that this was the result of the referees' discussion. If they stood up and questioned it, not only would they be publicly slapping their faces, they would also offend Boundless Sea and the Four Seas Escort Agency. They might even have to bear the consequences. If the competition went out of control because of this, no one could take the risk. Thinking of this, Zhao Bufan and the others had ugly expressions, but they endured it. After all, this additional challenge rule didn't really hurt them. Instead, it might be an opportunity. Apart from the Heavens Equal Escort Agency, the other 5 major escort agencies, including the Four Seas Escort Agency, did not have any Golden Core Stage executives at all. They were all traditional wealthy families, and a Golden Core Stage's strength could only be considered average among the escort agencies, perhaps even below average. If they could not even convince the masses, how could they possibly become executives like the head of an escort agency? As a result, with Boundless Sea's new challenge rule, as long as they weren't stupid, there was no chance of them losing points. On the contrary, if he could find a pushover, he would be able to earn some extra points. In other words, he would be the beneficiary right from the start, so why not? Among the crowd, only Qi Mingyuan's expression changed when he heard this. The other 5 major escort agencies did not have any Golden Core cultivators, but his Heaven's Equal Escort Agency did. Boundless Sea suddenly did this. Qi Mingyuan would be too slow if he couldn't even smell a conspiracy. In fact, the first thought that popped up in his mind was that this was a plot against the equal of Heaven Escort Agency. It would be fine if the number of challenges was directly limited. But the problem was that Boundless Sea had clearly said that any participant could issue a challenge. There was no limit to the number of times. His intentions were sinister. It was obvious. Qi Wenhan and Lin Yi were the only 2 people in the equal of Heaven Escort Agency who could accept the challenge, even with their strength. Given their strength, there shouldn't be many who could match them in the Golden Core Stage. But even a tiger couldn't stand up to a pack of wolves. Their qi would eventually run out. They were confident in winning the first 2 or 3 matches. But what about after that? Unlimited challenges. If they really did it this way, as long as these 2 people were exhausted, the other escort agencies that were eyeing them covetously could challenge them endlessly until the end of the conference. It wouldn't matter if they fought for an entire day. As long as they didn't kill both of them, the other escort agencies could continue to challenge them and grind points on them. No matter how big the equal of Heaven Escort Agency's previous advantage was, this little bit of points wouldn't be enough to compensate them. If Qi Mingyuan on stage could think of this, then Qi Wenhan would naturally be able to think of it as well. Furthermore, he was 100% sure that this plot was not directed at him, but at Ling Yi. The tallest tree in the forest was the first to be destroyed by the wind. Previously, Ling Yi had been in the limelight completely by relying on his own strength to turn the equal of Heaven Escort Agency into a super dark horse and trample the Four Seas Escort Agency underfoot. Boundless Sea had long since flown into a rage out of humiliation. Now that he suddenly made this move, who else could it be other than Ling Yi? This guy says that he's fair and just, but this challenge rule is clearly aimed at us. He wants to use a tag team battle to tire us out. Since we can't win fair and square, he's using this kind of underhanded method. Too sinister. Qi Wenhan couldn't help but grit his teeth. Qi Wenhan didn't know that in the other side's eyes, there wasn't even a need for a tag team battle. Wu Baoliang alone was enough to take care of him and Ling Yi. As long as one of them was left alive, they could grind points however they wanted. No one could stop them. Looking at the judges' expressions, this rule was probably added by Boundless Sea himself. This guy is a bit too unscrupulous. Lin Yi couldn't help but frown. Disregarding everything else, this was filled with the smell of a conspiracy. The feeling of being maliciously targeted really didn't sit well with him. Yeah, such a big thing. Why didn't old Dad say anything? Qi Wenhan muttered. Before he finished speaking, Qi Mingyuan suddenly stood up on the stage. He was one of the 5 judges, after all. Facing such a malicious rule, how could he not retaliate? He, Qi Mingyuan, wasn't a turtle hiding in its shell. Head escort high. This challenge rule for the head of an escort agency seems to be incomplete. It needs to be amended, Chi Mingyuan said after clearing his throat. The entire crowd was in an uproar. Everyone looked at each other in confusion. In the past, the ones who had asked this question were the people in charge of the escort agencies. Why was it Chi Mingyuan's turn this time? He was one of the people who had set the rules. There was no way he didn't know, right? For a moment, everyone's gazes turned thoughtful. The smart ones had already realized that there was something fishy about this. Oh, what do you think, head escort Chi? Boundless C raised his eyebrows. He was sure that Chi Mingyuan wouldn't be willing to suffer a loss. He would definitely retaliate. However, he had already prepared an excuse, so he wasn't worried at all. Chapter 44-47. Now that things had come to this, he knew that it was unrealistic to completely negate this rule. The only thing he could do now was to minimize the unfavorable side of himself. Points. Boundless C pretended to laugh and shook his head. Head escort Chi, you're thinking too much. The strength of all the participants must be limited to the Golden Core stage. As a Golden Core stage executive, if I can't even beat an opponent of the same level, and even have my points grinded away, isn't that a little too incompetent? What's the point of keeping such an incompetent executive? It's a good thing for every escort agency to get rid of this piece of trash early on. Head Chi, you're mistaken. If it's a limited number of 1v1 matches, then there's nothing to say if you lose. But if someone wants to drag you down with them, then no matter how strong you are, you'll eventually get tired. If you can't even guarantee fairness, then what's the point of this competition? Chi Mingyuan sneered, seeing everyone nod their heads. Boundless C couldn't help but stare blankly. He re-evaluated Chi Mingyuan. He didn't think that this guy, who came from a martial arts background, would have such sharp words. Oh, Head Chi, why are you so agitated? Could it be that your interests have been harmed? Are you afraid that the Golden Core stage executive of your Heaven's Equal Escort Agency will become an opening for others? You're one of the 5 great escort agencies. Why are you so unconfident? Boundless C asked back with interest. Head Chi, you're overthinking it. I'm just stating the facts. I have to fulfill my duty as a judge. Chi Mingyuan replied with a straight face. All right, if Head Chi says that, then I'll also discuss the facts with you. The purpose of the Southern Continent Escort Agency Grand Conference is to test and improve the strength of each escort agency. As long as it's something that might happen in real life, it can be included in the competition. This is the principle. I'm sure Head Chi doesn't have any objections. Boundless C said confidently. No. Chi Mingyuan shook his head. Then let me ask you, when the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency is escorted by the pirates, won't they take turns to fight you? They wouldn't be so reasonable as to negotiate a 1v1 with you escorts and even decide the winner in one match, right? Boundless C sneered. The audience roared with laughter. Who would want to be a pirate? Not to mention deciding the winner in one match. Even a one-on-one match was nonsense. The pirates had always bullied with numbers. This, Chi Mingyuan suddenly choked. He was stunned for a moment before he said, Even so, since it's a fair and just competition, the rules can't possibly leave such an obvious loophole. Wouldn't that allow people to blatantly farm points? Hee Head Escort Chi, you keep talking about loopholes and points. Aren't you feeling too guilty? Are you afraid that your own Heaven's Equal Escort Agency won't do? Boundless C didn't try to hide his ridicule. Our South Continent Sea region is a place where the weak are prey to the strong. Let's not talk about whether or not there are any loopholes for people to farm points. Even if there are, everyone can use the rules to their advantage. In the end, it would only lead to one result. The weak would become weaker, and the strong would become stronger. Everyone would clearly know who was strong and who was weak. There doesn't seem to be anything wrong with that, right? Chi Mingyuan looked at everyone's reactions. Seeing that many people were nodding in agreement, his heart couldn't help but sink. For a moment, he didn't know how to refute. Boundless Sea's words could be said elsewhere. Perhaps he would be criticized for not being righteous. But in the South Continent Sea region, it just so happened to be the rule that everyone followed. Everyone did it themselves, so naturally no one would object. Of course, nothing can be accomplished without rules. This challenge for the head of the escort agency will be decided by drawing lots. Everyone will compete fairly based on their strength. Head Escort Chi, do you have any other opinions? How about we let the other judges vote together in front of everyone? Boundless Sea glanced at Chi Mingyuan. No need. There was no need to ask Zhao Bufan and the others' opinions. It was clear from their tacit agreement just now. Even a public vote wouldn't change the result. It would only make this rule more convincing. However, Chi Mingyuan couldn't just give up so easily. He turned and said, I just want to add one last point. The higher-ups of the escort agency should have a chance to breathe during the match, right? The situation was already completely under the opponent's control, let alone completely rejecting this challenge rule. Chi Mingyuan knew that simply changing it wasn't realistic. Since things had already reached this point, he could only do it piecemeal and try to fight for one last chance. A chance to breathe? Boundless Sea's eyebrows jumped. He casually refuted. Are all the pirates that your escort agency meets so reasonable? Why would they give you a chance to breathe? What's impossible? Chi Mingyuan retorted. In reality, the pirates won't talk reason with us, but in reality, several escorts will fight together. If they run out of manpower, they can naturally retreat and rest. Is that so strange? Everyone nodded in agreement. After all, the leader of the escort agency was challenged by a senior Golden Core cultivator of the agency alone. If he was challenged consecutively and not given a chance to catch his breath, it would be somewhat unreasonable. That's a bit reasonable. Boundless Sea saw everyone's reactions and knew that he couldn't go overboard. In any case, a small concession didn't matter, so he said, if you want a chance to breathe, that's fine. But you can't rest forever. After all, if you really encounter pirates, you'll have no choice but to fight after a short rest. Otherwise, your companions will all die. Then how much time do you think is appropriate, Chief Escort High? Chi Mingyuan stared at Boundless Sea. A stick of incense. It can't be longer than that, Boundless Sea insisted. He glanced at Chi Mingyuan disdainfully. Chief Escort Chi, do you have any more questions? Chi Mingyuan originally wanted to argue a little more, but he sensed Boundless Sea's ill intentions. He suddenly shivered. He was afraid that Boundless Sea wouldn't say much and would directly ask the judges to raise their hands to decide, or even accuse him of something. If that was the case, he wouldn't have to try. He could only choose to stop before going too far. Very good. Since there are no more questions, then everyone prepare yourselves. The 5th round of the escort agency competition is about to begin. Boundless Sea smiled proudly. At the same time, he didn't hide his disdain at Chi Mingyuan. A martial artist was a martial artist. How dare he quarrel with me in public? Why don't you take a piss and look at yourself? Do you have the brains to do so? The audience discussed animatedly. They weren't looking forward to the upcoming escort agency competition, but rather the meaning behind Boundless Sea and Chi Mingyuan's sharp words just now. It was too thought-provoking. Chapter 44-48. At this point, anyone with a bit of knowledge could tell that the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency was being specially targeted this time. The challenge of the leader of the escort agency was almost tailor-made for them. In the eyes of other escort agencies, the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency was a piece of juicy meat. After 4 rounds of competition, the Equal of Heaven Escort Agency had a huge lead of 400 points over the second-place team. Originally, They had already secured the first place spot. However, the situation had changed once again. The existence of this final challenge would make the impossible possible in the end. Even Father can't do anything about it. This is really troublesome. When Chi Wen-han saw this scene, his expression immediately became more and more unsightly. He scratched his head and paced back and forth. "Brother Chi, you don't have to worry. Since things have come to this, there's nothing more to say. We'll deal with whatever comes our way," comforted Linny. "That's what you say, but to see the great situation that Brother Ling painstakingly created be wiped out in such a shameless way, I really can't accept it," Chi Wen-han said angrily as he pounded his fist. Last time, he and the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency were lucky enough to be ranked last among the top 5 escort agencies. This was already an unexpected surprise for him and the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency. This time, because of Lin Yi's existence, after 4 rounds, they had become the dark horse with the highest hopes of becoming the number 1. This feeling was like a dream. But now, Boundless Sea's simple challenge was going to shatter this dream. Who would be willing to accept this? "Brother Chi, I don't think there's a need to act like a little girl. Since they're deliberately targeting us, we'll just fight them one match at a time. For us, this is also a rare opportunity to score points, isn't it?" Lin Yi smiled. "But what if they are really so shameless? What if you brazenly use attrition warfare to wear them down?" Chi Wen-han was still indignant. After a moment of silence, he suddenly said resolutely, "Brother Ling, I can see that this matter is obviously aimed at you. I am truly sorry. You are participating in the competition for our escort agency, but instead you are being treated as the bird that sticks out. How about this? If someone challenges you later, you will be the one that sticks out. I'll take the lead." After all, he was the young master of the escort agency. Although he was still furious, Chi Wen-han's mental fortitude was far above that of an ordinary person. He quickly suppressed his anger and regained his rationality and calmness. Now that the situation had developed to this point, the ranking and points that he and the entire Heaven's Equal Escort Agency had previously placed so much importance on were no longer important. Today was the final battle. Even if they were defeated, it would be a glorious defeat. After all, everyone present could tell that the Equal of Heaven Escort Agency was being maliciously targeted. That was why they were dragged down from their throne. At the very least, the previous 4 rounds of the competition were enough to engrave the name of the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency into the hearts of the people. The winner was the king, and the loser was the bandit. It would more or less affect the escort agency's business, and even block the Equal of Heaven Escort Agency's future prospects. However, it wouldn't be much worse than the current situation. At most, he would develop in the Verdant Arc Sea region. There would be a foothold there, and he wouldn't lose his job. In comparison, Chi Wen-han was most worried about Lin Yi's safety. Back then, Lin Yi had only agreed to participate in the South Continent Escort Agency's grand event after his repeated pleas. Lin Yi had made such a great contribution. If Lin Yi were to lose his life because of this, then the entire Heaven's Equal Escort Agency would not be able to atone for their sins even if they died 10,000 times. Brother Chi, you're the young master in charge of the overall situation. How can you personally participate in the competition? However, Lin Yi laughed and patted Chi Wen-han's shoulder. Since you said that you're here for me, I naturally have to participate. Otherwise, if I don't participate, these people will be very disappointed. They might even beat you to death. That's... Chi Wen-han froze, speechless for a moment. What Lin Yi said wasn't impossible, it was highly possible. According to the challenge rules, there was no limit to the number of times a contestant could challenge a Golden Core Stage senior of an escort agency. Even if they couldn't directly challenge Ling Yi, if Chi Wen-han were to challenge him first, the other party could easily kill him. If they continued to challenge him, Ling Yi would have no choice but to fight. So, in the end, I still have to participate. Rather than taking such a meaningless and unnecessary risk, it's better to let me participate directly, Lin Yi said lightly. Sigh. Qi Wenhan could only sigh deeply and didn't say anything else. He didn't know what to say. Just as Lin Yi said, even if he, the young master of the escort agency, took the lead, he wouldn't be able to change the situation. What could he do? Could he just resign himself to fate? Qi Wenhan frowned. On the other hand, Lin Yi, who was in the eye of the storm, was calm and unperturbed by the situation. In reality, after hearing Boundless Sea's challenge rules, Lin Yi's first reaction wasn't one of worry. Rather, he was quite happy. Although Lin Yi's strength was only at the middle stage of the Golden Core stage, he was the strongest Golden Core expert who had a perfect breakthrough. Coupled with his various trump cards, it was more than enough to say that he was invincible in the Golden Core stage. Moreover, Lin Yi wasn't like other experts. He wasn't afraid of taking turns to fight. With the endless supply of qi from the Jade Pendant, basically no matter how many Golden Core opponents there were, they would all end up the same. They would be easily killed by Lin Yi, and at the same time the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency would gain a lot of points. There was no other possibility. More importantly, Wu Baoliang was the military advisor of the Dragon Boat Escort Agency. He was also part of the upper echelons of the agency. At the same time, he was also a Golden Core expert, which was completely in line with the challenge rules. Since others could challenge Lin Yi, naturally, Lin Yi could also challenge Wu Baoliang. This was a very rare opportunity. He had come all the way to the South Continent Sea to represent the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency in this South Continent Escort Agency Grand Conference. Wasn't it to deal with Wu Baoliang? Just like Cheng Haonan and the others, who were having a headache about how to ensure that they could face Lin Yi was also having a headache about this. However, he didn't take the side road like the others. Instead, he wanted to let nature take its course. It would be great if he could meet Wu Baoliang, but if he couldn't, then he would think of another way. Even Lin Yi didn't expect this to happen. Everything was supposed to depend on luck, but a turning point like this popped up out of nowhere. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and since they'd sent themselves to his doorstep, there was no reason for Lin Yi to reject them. Floating astronomy. Chapter 44-49. But Qi Wenhan still wasn't at ease. He couldn't think of an effective countermeasure right now, but he couldn't just stand by and watch Lin Yi get attacked. He couldn't just stand by and do nothing, not even if he was beaten to death. In the worst-case scenario, even if he knew it would be useless, he had to take the lead. Even if it meant risking his life, he had to let everyone know that the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency's men were not to be provoked or bullied by anyone. No buts. Lin Yi cut him off without hesitation. Instead of worrying over nothing, Brother Qi, you should calm your heart down and think about the upcoming competition. That's what you should be doing right now. All right then. We'll talk about this after the competition. Qi Wenhan's attention was immediately diverted. No matter how dangerous the challenge of the leader of the escort agency was, it was something to worry about later. The most important thing now was to think about how to deal with the competition. Putting aside the controversial additional challenge, the 5th round of the Escort Agency Tournament was the highlight of the entire South Continent's Escort Agency Festival. Not only did it determine the rankings, but it also showcased the true strength of each agency in this round of competition. 5 against 5. The rules are basically the same as the first round's escort robbery, but there's one less escort and a different scoring system. Qi Wenhan quickly got into the zone and analyzed. That's right. Although there's also a time limit of 1 incense stick, it doesn't count into points. Between the 2 escort agencies, the one with the most survivors will be the winner, and the winner will take 100 points from the loser. It doesn't seem like a big difference at first glance, but in terms of specific strategies, it's actually completely different. We'll have to make some adjustments. Lin Yi nodded. That's right. Brotherling, you're an expert in this field. I'll listen to whatever you say. Chi Wen-han hurriedly asked humbly. How am I an expert in this field? I was just lucky. Lin Yi broke into laughter. He had only been acting as an on-the-spot coach on the spur of the moment, but now he was being treated as an expert. Brotherling, you don't have to be so humble. The battle results are right there, and this is irrefutable evidence. No matter how humble you are, it's useless. Everyone can see it for themselves. Am I right? Chi Wen-han shouted at the escorts beside him. Yes. Everyone agreed in unison. They couldn't help but be impressed. Lin Yi's on-the-spot guidance in the first round of robbing the escorts was indeed very effective, and the results could not be said to be bad, especially when Chi Wen-han, the young master, supervised the escort guarding battle. When the two were put side by side, it was obvious who was superior. To the crowd, this wasn't just a mere compliment. It was something that would benefit them greatly. Based on their performance in the first round of robbing, if Lin Yi had been in command, they would have been able to survive. However, if Chi Wen-han, the young master, had been in command, but at least half of them would die. The difference between coming and going was huge. For these participating escorts, it could be the difference between life and death. All right. Faced with everyone's expectant and excited gazes, Lin Yi had no choice but to surrender and agree. I will do my best to give advice and suggestions for everyone. That should be fine, right? The escorts instantly cheered, attracting the attention of the bystanders. They all looked at each other. These people from the Heavens Equal Escort Agency must have taken the wrong medicine. The battle hadn't even started, and they were already celebrating in advance. Brotherling, quickly tell us, how should we deal with this escort agency competition? Chi Wen-han asked impatiently. There are two aspects. The on-the-spot battle is one aspect, and the planning outside the arena is the other. From a certain perspective, the latter may be more important than the former, because the former is only a tactic while the latter is a strategy. Lin Yi immediately stopped trying to shirk his responsibility and analyzed the situation for the crowd. The crowd listened and looked at each other. Some nodded as if they understood, while others were completely confused. They had no idea what Lin Yi was talking about. What Brotherling means is that the most important thing is to make good use of the two opportunities to challenge and be challenged. Chi Wen-han understood immediately. That's right. The planning outside the arena determines the overall situation. If we can make good use of these four opportunities, we can achieve twice the results with half the effort and take the initiative. Otherwise, it will be troublesome. Lin Yi nodded. The crowd finally understood. The rules of the escort agency competition only stated that each agency had two opportunities to challenge and two opportunities to be challenged. However, there were no restrictions on who would issue the challenge first or who would issue the challenge first. In other words, it was up to each agency to decide. In this case, the waters were getting deeper and deeper. For the Heavens Equal Escort Agency, there was nothing much to be said about the right to be challenged twice. They could only accept the challenge passively and did not have much of a choice. However, as for how to use the right to challenge twice, they would have to plan carefully. Who do we challenge? When do we issue the challenge? Chi Wen-han immediately grasped the crux of the problem. That's right. As long as we can handle these two key issues, everything else will naturally be solved, Lin Yi praised. Chi Wen-han could not help but fall into deep thought. These two issues did not seem difficult. If he followed his train of thought, there would only be two strategies, one conservative and one radical. If they were more conservative, they would naturally be picking on the weaker ones. As long as they challenged the weaker escort agencies, their Heavens Equal Escort Agency strength would be enough to guarantee them two victories. As for the remaining two chances of being challenged, they only needed to give it their all and fight as many battles as they could. In this way, with the first two victories, Even if he lost the next 2 rounds, he could at least guarantee that he would not lose any points in this round of the escort agency competition, due to the huge advantage accumulated in the first 4 rounds. Even if the second-place Divine Wind Escort Agency won all 4 rounds, they would at most obtain 670 points, which was just enough to tie with the Heavens Equal Escort Agency. In other words, the worst result after the 5 rounds was to tie with the Divine Wind Escort Agency for first place, which was nothing unacceptable. This was the most conservative strategy. Apart from this, there was another more radical strategy, which was to not challenge the smaller agencies. Instead, they would directly challenge the prestigious agencies that could pose a threat to them. For example, if the second-place Divine Wind Escort Agency won, then they would be able to take first place without any suspense. Of course, everything had its pros and cons. If they failed, then they would have to bear the risk of being overtaken by the prestigious agencies. Not only would they not be able to maintain first place, but they might not even be able to maintain second or third place. Floating astronomy. Chapter 4450. If Chi Wen-han had to choose, he would definitely choose the first option, to play it safe. However, with Lin Yi, who could turn something rotten into something magical, Chi Wen-han felt that even if he were to go up against a wealthy escort agency, his chances of winning would not be that low. After all, in the long run, if the Heavens Equal Escort Agency wanted to truly rise, they would have to go up against these traditional, wealthy escorts. If they kept retreating, they would forever be a fake, wealthy escort agency and would never be able to truly become a force to be reckoned with. Moreover, there was another factor that had to be taken into consideration. The upcoming challenge for the head of the escort agency was clearly disadvantageous to them, so they had to prepare well beforehand. The greater their advantage in points, the more confidence they would have when the time came. Brother Ling, what strategy do you have in mind? Chi Wen-han pondered for a long time, but ultimately could not decide. He could only ask Lin Yi for help. My strategy is very simple. Let's wait and see. Lin Yi smiled faintly. Ah, how exactly? Chi Wen-han asked hurriedly. The rules of the competition did not state that we have to make a decision within a certain period of time. We can just bide our time and see how the other agencies fare, Lin Yi said with a smile. But what if all the easy targets are snatched up by others, and what's left are hard bones to chew? What should we do then? Chi Wen-han could not help but worry. Each escort agency only had 2 chances to be challenged. Once the opportunity to challenge the weaker agencies was snatched up by the other agencies, it would be too late for the Heavens Equal Escort Agency to regret their decision. Brother Chi, do you think we, the Heavens Equal Escort Agency, are strong or weak among the 32 escort agencies? Lin Yi glanced at Chi Wen-han. He did not answer, but asked instead, This, of course, we are strong. Chi Wen-han hesitated for a moment, then immediately insisted, Since we are strong, we should have the temperament of a strong one. Taking advantage of others is the right of the weak. It has nothing to do with us. Keep an eye on the truly threatening competitors, then wait for the right opportunity to strike. This is what we should be doing, Lin Yi said faintly. Brother Ling's advice is enlightening. I have learned a lot. Chi Wen-han was finally enlightened. In front of everyone, he bowed deeply to Lin Yi. Before this, his mentality had always been at the bottom of the 5 major escort agencies. He didn't have much confidence when facing those traditional, wealthy families. However, after hearing Lin Yi's words, he came to a realization and broke out in cold sweat. He was 400 points ahead of the runner-up. If it wasn't for someone maliciously targeting him, he would have already secured the first place. As the young master of such an escort agency, if he didn't even have this little bit of magnanimity, he wouldn't be able to do so. How could he achieve greatness in the future? As the 2 of them spoke, Shanghai Wuliang had already announced the highly anticipated 5th round of the Escort Agency Championship. It had officially begun. As soon as Boundless Sea finished speaking, the representatives of the 5 escort agencies stood up at almost the same time and impatiently issued their challenges. They were challenging the same escort agency, 10,000 Miles Escort Agency. He was ranked 32nd. The total score of the 4 rounds was 0. This was one of all the escort agencies. It was the only escort agency that did not have a single cent, and the weakest among the 32 escort agencies was none other than the 10,000 Miles Escort Agency. As a small escort agency that was barely qualified to join the South Escort Agency Alliance, its combat strength was already so weak that it made people's hair stand on end. After the 3rd round of the test of the escort's loyalty, all 10 of the participating escorts defected, and the morale of the escort agency hit rock bottom. From the head of the escort agency to the ordinary escorts, all of them were dispirited and despondent. Any passerby could see that this 10,000 Miles Escort Agency was a piece of juicy meat. Anyone could easily snatch it away. There was no difficulty to speak of. The others didn't have the resolve of a powerhouse like the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency. Only an idiot wouldn't fight over 100 points. They're like dogs fighting over food. They don't give us any face at all. Lin, he couldn't help but laugh when he saw the depressed expression on the head escort's face. It's no wonder they're so nervous. Although every escort agency has 2 chances to be challenged, when it comes to the 10,000 Miles Escort Agency, there's clearly only one chance. If we miss this opportunity, we won't get another one. Chi Wen-han nodded. According to the rules of the Southern Continent Escort Agency Conference, if an escort agency had a negative score, the competition would be terminated and they would be eliminated. The 10,000 Miles Escort Agency had 0 points right now. It could still be challenged by other escort agencies, but once its score dropped to negative 100 points, it would be eliminated. The other escort agencies wouldn't be able to gain points from it. Being challenged by 5 escort agencies in one go made him the center of attention. Everyone was pointing at him. This feeling was so depressing that he wanted to die. The 10,000 Miles Escort Agency hesitated for a long time before they finally chose one of the weaker escort agencies. The 2 sides began to fight. Of course, none of the 5 escort agencies that jumped out to challenge the 10,000 Miles Escort Agency were among the top 5 escort agencies. After all, they were all wealthy escort agencies. If they behaved in an unsightly manner, they would be ridiculed by others. Chi Wen-han looked at Lin Yi gratefully when he saw this. If it weren't for Lin Yi's advice, he might have jumped out as well. Even if he didn't win this opportunity, his Heaven's Equal Escort Agency would definitely become a laughing stock. The results of the opening match of the Escort Agency tournament were quickly revealed. The 10,000 Miles Escort Agency was in no mood to continue fighting. In the face of their ferocious opponents, they were powerless to resist. After surrendering 100 points, they were unsurprisingly eliminated. Following that, the eyes of the other agencies immediately turned to the next pushover. For most of the people in charge of the escort agencies, nothing else mattered except for the points they had earned. This time, the top 5 escort agencies still did not budge. Of course, it would be useless even if they joined in. Unless they were crazy, these popular agencies would never pick them as opponents. Not only would they not gain any opportunity by joining in, but they would also become a laughing stock. These were all experienced and astute traditional wealthy agencies. They were not stupid. Just as Lin Yi expected, the 5th round of the Escort Agency Conference had been dominated by the lower-ranked agencies. After a full 2 hours, the top 5 escort agencies finally made their appearance. The first to take the stage was the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency, which was like the sun in the sky. They did not take the initiative, but were challenged by someone else. Their opponent was an old rival from the first round, the Noon Horse Escort Agency. This time, the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency was caught unprepared. After all, according to Lin Yi's strategy, He was prepared to wait for the other competitors to make the first move. Now, however, they had no choice but to accept the challenge. To be continued, our 655. Chapter 4451. Is there something wrong with the Noon Horse Agency? They lost to us in the first round, and now they're biting us like rabid dogs. They even challenged us. Do they think we're pushovers? Chi Wen-han said angrily. He was really a little apprehensive about this erratic Meridian Horse Escort Agency. Although he won the first battle, he paid the price of 3 lives. It could only be said to be a Pyrrhic victory. If they were to fight again, he really did not dare to guarantee that he would win. In reality, the Noon Horse Agency was a classic example of strength being greater than reputation. Although they had placed 11th in the last competition, they were definitely in the top 10 in terms of strength. They're doing this to make a name for themselves. We're just being used as a stepping stone. Lin glanced at the ranking. The Noon Horse Agency had a total of 160 points. It was ranked 13th out of all the agencies. Compared to its strength, it was not considered outstanding. It could barely be considered average. If it continued to develop normally, the Noon Horse Agency's best result would be to just barely squeeze into the top 10. As for becoming one of the top 5 agencies, that was pure wishful thinking. They had strength, but their points were not ideal. Seeing that there weren't many opportunities left, they might as well challenge the highly anticipated Heaven's Equal Escort Agency. This was the fastest way to increase their influence. Stepping stone? How dare they? Chi Wen-han became even more furious. The Noon Horse Escort Agency was like a scar in his eyes. Every time he thought about how they had won the first round, he couldn't help but feel a little angry. His shame turned into anger, especially since the other party had climbed all over him and used his Heaven's Equal Escort Agency as a stepping stone. Brother Chi, there's no need to be angry. From their point of view, it's not wrong to think that way. First, although our points are high, we're just a dark horse in everyone's eyes. Our strength hasn't been truly recognized. Second, our performance in the first round may have made them feel that our strength is just SOSO. That's all there is to it. Lin smiled indifferently. Humph, those snobbish bastards. Chi Wen-han snorted coldly, unable to speak, who told him to not perform well in the first round, giving the other party a chance to take advantage of him. However, being angry was just being angry. When he really had to face this Noon Horse Escort Agency, Chi Wen-han was still a little afraid. It was like a hedgehog with spikes all over its body, making people unable to bite it. Chi Wen-han did not have the slightest intention to challenge it, but now the other party was taking advantage of him. Instead, they had taken the initiative to stick to him. There was no way to avoid them. Now that things have come to this, there's no need to think about anything else. This battle is of utmost importance. As long as we do well, it'll be enough to serve as a deterrent to the other escort agencies, preventing them from acting rashly. However, if we make a mistake, the consequences will be unimaginable, Lin said solemnly to everyone. Everyone nodded. His Heaven's Equal Escort Agency had been in the limelight for the past 4 rounds of the competition. However, they did not have a strong record of fighting head-on battles. There were probably many people who were secretly dissatisfied with them, but they did not know what was going on. He just didn't dare to act rashly. This time, if the Noon Horse Escort Agency managed to create an opening, then in the eyes of the other escort agencies, the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency, which was at its peak, would no longer be the insufferably arrogant tyrant of the escort agencies. Instead, it was a delicious piece of juicy meat. Any escort agency with the slightest bit of ambition would definitely not let go of this excellent opportunity to make a name for themselves. He would definitely rush up and take a bite. Soldiers are trained for 1,000 days to be used in a single day. Brothers of the Equal of Heaven Escort Agency, it's time for you to come in. Just like before, Everyone who goes up to fight will be rewarded with 50,000 spirit jades. Those who are willing to fight, step forward." Qi Wenhan shouted in encouragement. "Yes." Everyone responded in unison. Without hesitation, they stood up and lined up. Everything else aside, the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency's sincerity towards the escorts under their command was not inferior to any other escort agency. They all had the same thought about fighting for the agency. It was worth it. Lin raised an eyebrow at the scene. There were more than 30 escorts present, and all of them were willing to fight for the agency. This level of morale was incomparable to that of the other escort agencies. Even the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency from 2 days ago could not compare to this level of morale. It was clear that the cohesiveness of these 2 days was not insignificant. Very good. This scene was beyond Qi Wenhan's expectations. He was overjoyed and turned to Lin Yi. "Brother Ling, I'll leave the rest to you, including me. Whoever you say will go up. How you say we should fight, we'll fight." "Ha. Brother Qi, you can forget about it. If the young master of an escort agency has to fight personally, no matter who wins or loses, others will look down on him." Lin Yi shook his head and laughed. He swept his gaze across the escorts in front of him, and finally picked out 5 of them. 1 Golden Core Paragon, 2 at the peak of the late Golden Core Realm, and 2 at the late Golden Core Realm. This was the lineup that Lin Yi had chosen. This level of strength could be considered as the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency's first echelon. But it was definitely not the strongest lineup. Lin Yi was deliberately conserving his strength. This was only the first round of the competition. He could not act like a gambler and go all out. After all, these escorts were not like Lin Yi himself. After a battle, his inner qi would be almost completely depleted, and he would not be able to recover in a short period of time. He could only rest on the sidelines, unable to continue fighting. Will this work? Qi Wenhan asked worriedly in a low voice. In his mind, even a lion would use its full strength to capture a rabbit. Moreover, the other party was from the Horse Escort Agency, and they were not easy targets. If he underestimated them, he could easily lose. Regardless of whether it will work or not, I've already chosen them. I can't just change them at the last minute, can I? That's a taboo. Lin Yi looked at him with a playful expression. Oh! Only then did Qi Wenhan react. He hurriedly covered his mouth in apology. Before, he had already said that he would leave everything to Lin Yi. If he interjected now, he would be eating his own words. Who did he want everyone to listen to? At this time, the staff of the convention came over to urge everyone to go up on stage. On the other side, the 5 participating escorts from the Horse Escort Agency were already valiantly standing on the stage. F*CK, they're all men of sacrifice. No wonder this agency is famous for being crazy. Every single one of them is a lunatic. Qi Wenhan's eyelid twitched as he watched. The opponents' lineup consisted of 1 Golden Core Paragon, 1 at the peak of the late Golden Core Realm, and 3 at the late Golden Core Realm. In terms of strength, there was not much difference between their side. However, the aura that these 5 people exuded was clearly written on their faces. They were unafraid of death. 1 was a man of sacrifice, and 1 was an ordinary person. Even if their strength was the same, if they really fought, the man of sacrifice would definitely have a higher chance of winning. This was inevitable. Chapter 4452. When Qi Wenhan was guarding the escort, he had suffered this loss. This was also the reason why the Noon Horse Escort Agency was regarded as a tough nut to crack. Qi Wenhan could not help but feel a little guilty. The strength of the 5 participating escorts on his side was about the same as the other party, but if they really fought, they might be at a disadvantage. It looks like the Noon Horse Escort Agency has brainwashed these escorts quite a bit. Lin Yi was slightly taken aback by the situation, but he did not reveal the slightest hint of worry. His expression remained the same. Ah, brainwashing. Chi Wen-han thought for a moment before he understood what the term meant. He nodded heavily. Yes, brainwashing. I heard that the Noon Horse Escort Agency is managed like a military. 3 times a day, in the morning, afternoon, and evening, the higher-ups of the agency have to give lectures. All they say is to be loyal to the agency and die for it. This kind of opponent is indeed not easy to deal with. The formation of death warriors is indomitable and unstoppable. Unless the opponent's strength is much higher than theirs, the average expert will be at a disadvantage. Lin nodded thoughtfully and turned to the participating escorts beside him. The 5 of you, what do you think? We'll follow escort leader Ling's instructions. The 5 participating escorts replied in unison. All right, let me ask a little aside first. Do you usually play games? Games that children often play, such as drawing a circle and chasing around in circles? Lin suddenly asked with interest. Huh, play games? The 5 participating escorts, as well as Chi Wen-han and the others beside him, were instantly dumbfounded. Yes, we play games. I was thinking, since the other party is so aggressive, how about we play a game with them first? Lin said seriously. The crowd was speechless and looked at each other. If it was not for Lin Yi's miraculous performance that had convinced them, they would have suspected that there was something wrong with this guy's brain. Finally, under the staff's repeated urging, the 5 participating escorts of the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency slowly walked onto the stage with a strange expression on their faces. Meanwhile, Lin Yi, Chi Wen-han, and the others stood by the side of the stage to supervise the match. What the hell are you so slow for? No matter what, you're still the super dark horse of this year's grand meeting. Don't tell me that your equal of Heaven Escort Agency is feeling guilty and afraid of our Noon Horse Escort Agency? The head escort of the Noon Horse Escort Agency, Wu Tsonglong, who was supervising the battle, opened his mouth and ridiculed in an overbearing manner. Others might be intimidated by the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency's heaven-defying momentum, but Wu Tsonglong wouldn't be. Looking at the previous South Continent Escort Agency grand meetings, the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency had never been able to gain an advantage over him. It was the same this year as well. How strong was the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency? He knew this much better than the average person. It's not an important match anyway. The result has already been decided. Let's take it slow. What does it matter if it's a little earlier or a little later? Lin replied with a faint smile. There was an uproar outside. Based on the current rankings, the Noon Horse Escort Agency was indeed not even worthy of carrying the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency's shoes. However, everyone knew that the Noon Horse Escort Agency was a tough nut to crack, even if it was the 4 Seas Escort Agency. They didn't dare to underestimate him too much. Wasn't he a little too arrogant? You've only managed to scrape up a lot of points by sheer luck. You haven't even fought a proper battle. You're not that strong, but you sure are arrogant. Wu Tsonglong was instantly enraged. He was the absolute ruler of the Noon Horse Escort Agency. Once he lost his temper, the 5 men of sacrifice on the field would immediately put on an attitude of submission. He immediately assumed the attitude of a subordinate who would die if his master was humiliated. Like a mad dog, he could not wait to skin the people from the Equal of Heaven Escort Agency alive. If an average person stood in front of them, they would probably be so scared that they wouldn't even be able to stand. Even though the 5 escorts that Lin had picked were not cowards, they still felt like mice meeting a cat in front of these people. They did not seem to be evenly matched opponents at all. A passerby agency that has only scored 160 points, which is only a fraction of our total points. Yet you're saying that we're arrogant. I'm speechless. I can only reply with 2 words, Lin continued to laugh mockingly. His calm and condescending attitude infuriated Wu Tsonglong to no end. At this moment, the audience had a completely different feeling. Although the head of the Heavens Equal Escort Agency was talking tough, the 5 participating escorts on the field were all cowering in fear. It was as if they were frightened by the other party. No matter how they looked at it, this was not the demeanor of the best escort agency. You have a sharp tongue. You still dare to laugh at me? Let's see if you can still laugh later. Wu Tsonglong sneered and suddenly shouted, "Brothers, they're the best escort agency, and they're looking down on the Noon Horse Escort Agency. What do you think we should do? Whoever dares to humiliate the Noon Horse Escort Agency will be crushed to pieces." The 5 escorts on the field roared in unison. They're really poisoned. This brainwashing. TSK, TSK. Lin, he couldn't help but shake his head and laugh at the scene. He didn't say anything else because his goal had been achieved. The match had officially begun. As soon as the referee gave the order, a long stick of incense was lit at the side of the arena. The 5 horse escorts on the arena couldn't wait any longer. They roared angrily and pounced on the 5 members of the Heavens Equal Escort Agency. In front of their ferocious momentum, the 5 members of the Heavens Equal Escort Agency were like quails. They didn't have any morale to resist. The Heavens Equal Escort Agency isn't a fake, is it? The audience couldn't help but look at each other in dismay. What happened next only confirmed their suspicions. Facing the menacing Noon Horse Escort Agency, the 5 escorts from the Heavens Equal Escort Agency didn't have the awareness of the experts of the 5 Great Escort Agency. Their reactions were even worse than the weakest 10,000-mile escort agency. They didn't even think about fighting back. Instead, they turned tail and ran. The entire stadium was in an uproar. Everyone, including Boundless Sea and Qi Mingyuan, who didn't know what was going on, was dumbfounded. Not only did they not fight back in this kind of group arena, they turned tail and ran. This was the first time in the history of the Southern Continent's Escort Agency Association. The only consolation was that the 5 people from the Heavens Equal Escort Agency still had some sense of shame. At the very least, they didn't run off the stage. Instead, they ran for their lives. If they had jumped off the stage, they would have been eliminated and the match would have ended there and then. Even so, the audience was still dumbfounded by the chaotic situation on the stage. The 5 Heavens Equal Escort Agency were being chased by the Noon Horse Escort Agency all over the stage. All of them had their hands over their heads and were running away like rats. They didn't have the slightest bit of resistance. Chapter 4453. Initially, he was still a little worried. Although they had suffered heavy losses in the first round, they had still lost. Now, his worries had been thrown to the back of his mind. Morale was the most important factor in an arena death match. Without morale, no matter how strong one was, they would not be able to unleash their full potential. How could the Heavens Equal Escort Agency have any morale left? If they were not afraid of being punished by the agency, the 5 participating escorts would have already raised their hands and surrendered. As Wu Tsonglong laughed, the 5 horse escorts seemed to have received a boost in morale. Every move they made became more violent and ferocious. The Heavens Equal Escort Agency, who was being chased around the arena, was like a small boat in the middle of a huge wave, in danger of being capsized at any time. Everyone who saw this could not help but break out in cold sweat for them. Hee, this round is already a sure win. We won't even need half an incense stick's time to decide the winner. Wu Tsonglong said confidently. He turned to his assistant and instructed, "Quickly prepare the list of challengers and wait for the judges. Once they're done here, submit the challenge request." Head Escort Agency, who are we going to challenge next? The assistant asked. Idiot, of course we're going to challenge the Heavens Equal Escort Agency. Wu Tsonglong glared at him and said with a greedy expression, "He's obviously a pushover. He can easily earn points and make a name for himself. I'm sure many escort agencies will be fighting to challenge him later. We can't let others take advantage of him." Yes, The assistant finally understood and quickly went to prepare the list. Haha! Challenging the Heavens Equal Escort Agency was a wise move. We've gained both fame and fortune. If this continues, we can look forward to becoming one of the top 5 escort agencies. Wu Tsonglong said proudly. The situation was going so smoothly that even he could not believe it. Becoming one of the top 5 escort agencies had been his long-cherished wish for many years. Who would have thought that the equal of Heaven Escort Agency would be such a perfect stepping stone, delivering itself right to his doorstep? Wu Tsonglong was eagerly anticipating the outcome of the battle so that he could take advantage of the situation to reap some benefits. However, half an incense stick's time had passed. Although the arena was still in chaos, not a single one of the 5 Heavens Equal Escort Agency had fallen. Not only that, the 5 of them were not injured at all. As the head of the Horse Escort Agency, even though Wu Tsonglong was bent on using the equal of Heaven Escort Agency as a stepping stone, his observational skills were not something an ordinary person could compare to. He could already sense that there was something fishy going on. Even though Zhang Xian couldn't tell what the other party was up to, he was certain that the 5 Heavens Equal Escort Masters weren't as cowardly as they thought they were. They were being incited by someone else. Don't waste time. Focus on killing one first. Wu Tsonglong suddenly ordered. Yes. Escort Wu Ma on the stage was already feeling a little impatient. Hearing this, they immediately formed an encirclement formation. It was not a brilliant formation, but under the restrictions of the arena, it was enough to easily trap the opponent in a corner. Of course, the prerequisite for doing so was to temporarily let go of the other 4. No matter what, he had to get rid of one first. This way, even if the time for an incense stick to burn was up, he would still be able to get rid of it. It was also the Noon Horse Escort Agency's victory. At least there wouldn't be any accidents. 5 against 1. And the one trapped was the weakest late Golden Elixir Stage expert of the Heavens Equal Escort Agency. The drowsy audience immediately became excited. Based on the Noon Horse Escort Agency's usual style, no one would be able to save this pitiful worm. A smug expression returned to Wu Tsonglong's face. He didn't know what the Heavens Equal Escort Agency was up to, but in the face of absolute power, all schemes and plots were just a joke. Unfortunately, Wu Tsonglong had forgotten one thing. In terms of the true strength of both parties on the battlefield, the Wu Horse Escort Agency did not have any advantage at all. It was just that the Heavens Equal Escort Agency's pathetic retreat had given him this subconscious misconception. There was no need for Lin Yi's order, and the other 4 Heavens Equal Escorts who had been emptied on the stage immediately changed from their previous cowardice to attacking together without hesitation. The speed of the change was shocking, and their target was the strongest Golden Core perfected master from the Horse Escort Agency. In the blink of an eye, it was still a farce. In the blink of an eye, the situation on the arena had become extremely tense. The audience watched with their eyes wide open, afraid to miss out on a good show. It was originally 5 against 1, but in the blink of an eye, it had become 4 against 1. This was because the Noon Horse Escort Agency who had been targeted would definitely not be able to fend for himself. It looked like they were about to exchange pieces. However, the difference was that once the pieces were exchanged, the Heavens Equal Escort Agency would lose their weakest late Golden Elixir Stage expert, while the Noon Horse Escort Agency would lose their strongest Golden Elixir Stage expert. No matter how one looked at it, it was a huge loss. Do you think we'll be afraid just because of this? What a joke. Eat the meat in your mouth first. Wu Tsonglong was not flustered or afraid. Others might be afraid of this situation, but the Noon Horse Escort Agency was not. Based on their usual style, they would definitely withstand the pressure and kill the late Golden Elixir Stage expert first. Then they would turn around and attack. The weakest late golden elixir stage expert would not be able to withstand the combined attack of everyone. However, the strongest golden elixir stage expert would have at least a 50% chance of surviving. Even if they were heavily injured, they would still have the upper hand in a 5-against-4 situation. A 50% chance of surviving was a risk that most people would not dare to take. However, these escorts who had been brainwashed by Wu Songlong were definitely an exception. After all, they were people who had been trained to die on the spot. Unexpectedly, after hearing Wu Songlong's words, the corner of Lin Yi's mouth curled up slightly. Is that so? How pathetic and ignorant. Wu Songlong wanted to retort. However, before he could say more than a few words, the 5 Noon Horse Escort agency members on the arena suddenly retreated in unison. They actually temporarily let go of the Heavens Equal escort, who was trapped in the corner. Instead, they turned around and faced the 4 people behind them with a guarded expression. Are you all crazy? Why are you retreating now? You dare to disobey the orders of your chief escort agency? Wu Songlong was instantly enraged. Even the spectators outside the arena were in an uproar. Disobeying orders was something that would never happen in the Noon Horse Escort Agency. However, the scene before them was clearly slapping Wu Songlong in the face. How could they explain it? Hearing Wu Songlong's roar, the 5 Noon Horse Escort Agency members on the arena, especially the Golden Elixir Stage expert, could not help but shrink their necks in fear. Originally, he had wanted to withstand the pressure and take the opportunity to kill the late Golden Elixir Stage expert. It was not only him. Every single Noon Horse Escort Agency member had the same thought. Floating astronomy. Chapter 4454. But just now, for some reason, his body had inexplicably made an evasive movement. Even he himself did not know why. Haha, looks like this tactic worked. Lin Yi smiled faintly and nodded in satisfaction. Brotherling, what tactic is this? How dare they disobey Wu Songlong's orders? Isn't this too strange? Qi Wenhan asked in disbelief. Just now, when arranging the tactic in order to prevent it from being leaked, Lin Yi only gave instructions to the 5 participating escorts. Everyone else, including Qi Wenhan, was kept in the dark. Not only Qi Wenhan, but everyone present who knew a thing or two actually had this doubt. The Noon Horse Escort Agency was famous for its strict obedience. Under the circumstances where the strength of the escorts was not outstanding, it was also because of this that they were able to gain a foothold in the Southlands. It was not an exaggeration to say that it was their lifeline, but now they don't really dare to openly disobey orders. It's just like how Wu Songlong insisted on brainwashing them. From just now, we have also been brainwashing them. It's that simple. Lin Yi smiled. Ah, brainwashing? Qi Wenhan's expression instantly became even more strange. How is that possible? Brotherling, you didn't say anything to brainwash them? Brainwashing doesn't necessarily require words. Actions are enough. From the beginning until now, all the actions of the 5 escorts have been instilling a hint into the other party, making them subconsciously firm in their thoughts. Lin Yi said, What thoughts? Qi Wenhan scratched his head. Brother Qi, if it were you, and you encountered a group of opponents who covered their heads and fled as soon as they appeared, asking you to exchange lives with them one-on-one, do you know how to do it? Lin Yi asked instead of answering. Of course not. Knowing that the other party is not as good as you, who would be stupid enough to exchange lives with them one-on-one? Qi Wenhan replied instinctively. Then he reacted and slapped his thigh. Wonderful. How wonderful. Brotherling, you are indeed brilliant. Not really brilliant. I saw that the other party's morale was high from the start, and it was not a good idea to fight them head-on. So I simply decided to show weakness. As for this, it's actually an unexpected gain. Lin Yi said with a smile. In one spurt of energy. This was the experience left behind by the ancient people. It was used to deal with the Wu Ma escort agency, this kind of armed escort team that was on steroids. It just so happened to have a miraculous restraining effect, and the psychological suggestion left behind in the process made the horse escort master waver. Even Lin Yi himself did not expect that it would have such a good anti-brainwashing effect. Hee, brotherling, you don't have to be so humble. You must have calculated this point, which is why you made our brothers flee so pathetically. This afternoon, Tsong Long is going to have a headache. Strict compliance is the foundation of their escort agency's survival. Now that his subordinates are disobedient, let's see what else he can do to be arrogant. Qi Wenhan immediately felt proud and elated. They might not necessarily be disobedient. It's just that he doesn't seem to be very obedient. Lin Yi corrected. It was impossible for the Wu steed escort to completely disobey Wu Tsonglong's orders with this kind of strategy. Same. Qi Wenhan chuckled, then said impatiently, Then what do we do next? Do we have to go all out in one go? No, it's not the right time yet. Lin Yi shook his head lightly. Now, it seemed that his side had a slight psychological advantage, but it was far from enough. After all, the Wu Horse Escort Agency was not so easy to deal with. If they were to apply pressure now, it was very likely that they would retaliate and cause the opposite effect. All right, although Qi Wenhan's heart was itching. Since he had given Lin Yi full authority, he naturally would not say anything. Whatever Lin Yi said, he would do. Bastards. A bunch of bastards. Did my words go in one ear and out the other? Do you want to go back and receive punishment? Hurry up and kill one of them. Wu Tsonglong was still in a rage. When the 5 Wu Horse Escort Agency heard the words punishment, they instantly shivered and did not dare to be the slightest bit negligent. They hurriedly shook off the distracting thoughts in their minds and began to exert their strength again. They surrounded one of the Heaven's equal escorts in a corner. It was still that Golden Dan late-stage escort. At the same time, the 4 Heaven's equal escorts who had been emptied all turned their attention to the strongest Golden Dan late-stage escort. The situation was exactly the same as before. Kill him! Kill him! Wu Tsonglong was afraid that there would be another mishap, so he yelled and urged. While he was urging them, the other 4 Heaven's equal escort masters had already prepared their powerful martial techniques. The arrow was already nocked on the bowstring, and at this critical moment, the group of Wu Horse escort masters, especially the Golden Core Paragon escort master, hesitated for a moment. However, under the threat of Wu Tsonglong, they had no choice but to act. You can come down now, Lin Yi suddenly ordered. Then, under the watchful eyes of the crowd, when the Wu Horse Escort Agency launched their attacks, the trapped Heaven's equal escorts actually jumped down from the arena at the last moment, causing all their attacks to miss. At the same time, it was the Golden Dan late-stage escort from the Wu Horse Escort Agency who received the full force of the other 4 Heaven's equal escorts' attacks. While he was hesitating, all of his vital points were hit and he died on the spot. In the blink of an eye, the entire crowd fell silent. Wu Tsonglong's face became extremely ugly, as black as the bottom of a pot. Because the Heaven's equal escorts jumped down from the arena, they lost a late-stage Golden Dan late-stage escort. On the other hand, the Wu Horse Escort Agency lost a Golden Dan late-stage escort. It was a classic strategy, but everyone could see that the Wu Horse Escort Agency had suffered a great loss this time. After a long period of attrition, the morale of the Middle Horse Escort on the field had already been worn down. Otherwise, if their morale was still high, they would not have wavered just now, nor would they have hesitated and delayed things. Now, they had suffered such a great loss, especially when they were toyed with by their opponents. Their morale had fallen to rock bottom, and they were at a loss for what to do. Feign weakness to the enemy, then retreat when the enemy advances. wear down the morale, and defeat the enemy with one strike. Brother Ling, you are a master of the art of war. Qi Wenhan's eyes lit up. He was a knowledgeable person, which was why he could see the situation so clearly. If it had been anyone else, they would have thought it was amazing. They would have thought that the Heaven's equal escorts were obviously in a sorry state. So how did they suddenly gain the upper hand? Could it be that young Hero Ling's strategy from the very beginning was to use this strategy? Steward Song, who had been silent all this time, finally spoke up. That's right. Against a tough opponent like the Wu Horse Escort Agency, using brute force would be too damaging. Using this kind of strategy, which is extremely advantageous, can break their morale. Lin Yi nodded and said, To be continued. Chapter 4455. If not for the previous incident, they would have done so already. However, now that it had happened, the 4-horse escort masters left on the field suffered an even greater blow. However, after saying that, his thoughts drifted to the faraway North Africa. At that time, fighting in the jungle required the most tactics, and the tactics that Lin Yi used were just some of the tactics that he had used too many times. It was just that no one used them on Heaven-Tier Island. Top novel. When he thought of North Africa, he could not help but think of Yuning. Was she doing well in the secular world? Was everyone else doing well? Has he received my letter? Shaking his head, he threw away these sorrowful thoughts because the competition was still ongoing. To be able to receive the help of young Hero Ling is the greatest fortune that the equal of Heaven's escort agency has accumulated over several lifetimes. It is also the fortune of the young master's family. Steward Song sighed as he glanced at Qi Wenhan meaningfully. Qi Wenhan embarrassedly scratched his head. In comparison, the performance of his young master was far too immature. It couldn't be said that he was weak, but it could be said that Ling Yi was a freak. He was strong in all aspects, and ordinary people couldn't compare to him. What are you panicking for? You still have 4 people, and the opponent only has 4 people. What is there to panic about? Let's take them down in one go. Wu Songlong was unwilling to accept his fate and continued to shout from below the stage. He was still trying to raise the morale of his team and was still thinking of turning the tables. However, in the eyes of the audience, this scene only caused them to mock him. Anyone with eyes could see that the horse escort company had already lost. At this time, it was useless to be so stubborn. 4 against 4 is not bad, but the other side has 1 Jindan peak, 2 peak stage Jindan realm martial artists, and 1 peak stage Jindan realm martial artist, while your Noon Horse Escort Agency has 1 peak stage Jindan realm martial artist and 3 peak stage Jindan realm martial artists. If their morale was as high as before, then they might be able to create a miracle. However, the problem was that their morale had fallen to the freezing point. What could they use to fight against the opponent? The development of this competition was not surprising. Just as everyone had expected, the Noon Horse Escort Agency had lost all of its sharpness. It was completely suppressed by the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency. Even after the time it took to burn a stick of incense, the 4 escorts of the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency were still unscathed. On the other hand, the menacing Noon Horse Escort Agency had lost another 2 escorts. In the end, they had to pay a heavy price of 3 lives. This was the end of the challenge. Without losing a single soldier, the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency managed to have the last laugh despite the farce that started the operation. This scene caused everyone's eyes to pop out of their sockets, and they could not help but comment on it. Even a traditional wealthy organization like the 4 Seas Escort Agency might not be able to completely destroy the Noon Horse Escort Agency, which was known for its toughness and blood. At the very least, it was impossible for them to do so without losing a single soldier. However, the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency had done it. This was a duel. Rather than saying it was a difference in strength, it was better to say it was a complete and utter suppression of intelligence. From the beginning to the end, Wu Tsonglong had been toyed with by Lin Yi. He did not have the slightest ability to resist. However, because of this, the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency was even more favored by the Chambers of Commerce. Not only did the people in charge of the Chambers of Commerce not look down on the Heaven's Equal Escort for running away, they all nodded their heads in approval. After all, the responsibility of an escort was to be a bodyguard. It was not to fight with brute force. No matter what methods were used, as long as one managed to protect the goods, they would be considered a good escort. On the other hand, if one fought with brute force and lost the goods, what was the point of that? To put it nicely, it was bravery, but in reality it was like a tiger. It was not a life or death grudge. An escort's job was to be a bodyguard. Everything else was secondary. On the scoreboard, the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency had risen by 100 points, reaching an astonishing 770 points. Not only had the gap not shrunk, but it had also widened. On the other hand, the Noon Horse Escort Agency, which had initiated the challenge, was left with a pitiful 60 points after losing 100 points. Not only was it at the bottom of all the escort agencies, but it was also facing the awkward situation of being eliminated if it lost another match. Wu Tsonglong's mood was so gloomy that he could die. He had been feared by all the escort agencies, but now he was about to follow in the footsteps of the 10,000 Miles Escort Agency. However, he had brought this upon himself. Who asked him to challenge the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency? Head Escort Agency, are we still going to challenge the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency? The assistant, who had been ordered to make preparations, asked cautiously. Slap. Wu Tsonglong slapped the assistant so hard that he fell to the ground. He shouted hysterically, "Challenge my ass! Don't tell me that we haven't lost badly enough. Do you really want to be eliminated?" Although he had flown into a rage out of humiliation, Wu Tsonglong did not lose his rationality. Right now, the most important thing for him was to ensure that he would not be eliminated, not to chase after the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency. Otherwise, if they lost another match and were really eliminated, his Noon Horse Escort Agency would become as weak as the 10,000 Miles Escort Agency. They would no longer be able to receive any decent large orders. From then on, they would have to rely on the sea breeze to pass their days. The previous example was right in front of them. For a moment, the escort agencies that had been itching to give it a try and had the same idea as the Noon Horse Escort Agency. For example, the Yongxing Escort Agency, which was about as strong as the Noon Horse Escort Agency, had originally wanted to use the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency as a stepping stone to reach the top in one step. However, they were now hesitating again. It was true that the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency had not displayed its truly overwhelming strength in this match. It was far from enough to make people feel fear and despair. However, if it was any other escort agency that had taken the challenge, they could not guarantee that they would perform better than the Noon Horse Escort Agency. What if they ended up in the same situation? Lin Yi smiled faintly when he saw that the people in charge of the escort agencies had fallen into a state of hesitation and struggle. This effect was actually just right. He could easily obtain points without scaring the other agencies and completely cut off their thoughts of reaching the top in one step. Otherwise, if they were to be so frightened that no agency dared to take the initiative to challenge them, it would be a different kind of loss. After all, in the 5th round of the Escort Agency Championship, each agency was only given the right to challenge and the right to be challenged twice. As for whether they wanted to challenge or use up all these opportunities, it was up to each agency to decide. There were no mandatory rules in the championship. For example, the Equal of Heaven Escort Agency had the right to initiate a challenge twice. Of course, it was up to them to decide. However, whether or not they could use the remaining right to be challenged depended on whether or not the other escort agencies would continue to challenge them. If they were all scared off, then the right to be challenged this time would just be for show. Naturally, it would be useless. This problem was not so obvious for the Heavens Equal Escort Agency. After all, it was just a new force to be reckoned with. Its strength had yet to be truly ingrained in people's hearts. Floating astronomy. Chapter 4456. However, for traditional aristocrats like the Four Seas Escort Agency and the Divine Wind Escort Agency, their accumulated prestige was an obvious disadvantage at this time. They were more likely to fight among themselves. As for the other escort agencies, they did not dare to challenge them at all. Otherwise, they would be asking for trouble and giving away points for no reason. The entire conference fell into a rare silence. After the time it took for half an incense stick to burn, an escort agency stepped forward to challenge again. However, the challenger was not the Heavens Equal Escort Agency, but the weakest agencies that were ranked at the bottom in terms of strength and ranking. The ready-made points that were guaranteed to win were what most escort agencies loved the most. The 5 consecutive matches were all competitions that were aimed at grabbing points while they were down. There was no suspense to speak of. Compared to the match between the Heavens Equal Escort Agency and the Noon Horse Escort Agency, it was really boring. The atmosphere in the entire Demon Cold Square was quite dull. Everyone was even beginning to feel sleepy. At this time, another good show finally came on stage. The Black Eagle Agency, which was ranked 6th on the scoreboard, challenged the Heavens Equal Escort Agency. Upon hearing these two names, everyone's spirits rose. These two organizations were no ordinary organizations. The Heavens Equal Escort Agency, which was currently in the limelight, did not need to be mentioned. However, the Black Eagle Escort Agency was no ordinary organization either. The Black Eagle Agency? Lin Yi did not know much about this escort agency. He was surprised by this challenge. He thought that the Four Seas Escort Agency would not be able to hold back. After all, if it wanted to quickly gain points, directly challenging the Heavens Equal Escort Agency was the most cost-effective choice. As long as it won, it would be able to gain 200 points in one go. Otherwise, even if it won 4 matches in a row, it might not be able to gain so many points unless the Heavens Equal Escort Agency suffered consecutive defeats. Unfortunately, the probability of this happening was not high. This is troublesome. Shi Wenhan, who was standing at the side, frowned. Seeing that Lin Yi was still confused, he smiled bitterly and explained. The strength of this escort agency is far beyond the Noon Horse Escort Agency. Its strength is definitely not to be underestimated. Brotherling, do you know about the Yuantong Escort Agency? I've heard a little about it. It's said that the original 5 major escort agencies split up during the last South Continent Escort Agency Festival. That's why their position fell to our agency. Lin Yi nodded. He had heard about this from other escorts. This Black Hawk Escort Agency is actually the reorganized Far Pass Escort Agency. I heard that they've been recruiting for the past few years, and their strength is even stronger than the original Far Pass Escort Agency. And this time, they even publicly shouted out a slogan, saying that they want to take back their position as one of the 5 major escort agencies from our hands. Shi Wenhan couldn't help but feel a little nervous. If it was the afternoon darts, even if they had to pay a heavy price, they would still be able to defeat their opponents. However, this Black Eagle Escort Agency that came with such a menacing aura, if they were to really fight, their strength would probably be above their own. This was definitely a strong enemy. If that's the case, you've come with ill intentions. It was only then that Lin Yi understood. It made sense for the Black Eagle Escort Agency to challenge his Heavens Equal Escort Agency. They wanted to take back their position as one of the top 5 escort agencies. Naturally, he would target the 5 major escort agencies. Compared to the other 4 traditional wealthy families, the Heavens Equal Escort Agency was still in the limelight, but it was much weaker. Moreover, it was once the Yuantong Escort Agency. It had been snatched away by the equal of Heaven Escort Agency. Therefore, this was a typical revenge. Brotherling, what should we do now? Chi Wen-han saw that Lin Yi didn't seem to care. He could not help but ask nervously, "What else can we do? I'll fight with all my strength. I'll have to fight this kind of tough battle sooner or later. It's not a bad thing. If we do well in this battle, our equals Heaven's Escort Agency's spirit, Chi and spirit will rise by leaps and bounds. That is the aura that a wealthy and powerful family should have." Lin Yi glanced at him before ordering the escorts to line up and prepare for the selection of soldiers. "Brotherling is right. I lost my composure." Only then did Chi Wen-han react. As the young master, being afraid before the battle had even begun, would greatly affect the morale of his men. While he was secretly embarrassed, he hurriedly patted his chest and said, "Brotherling, this is going to be a tough battle. I'm afraid it will be difficult to use tricks like before. Why don't I personally take the lead?" An arena battle of life and death was ultimately a battle of brute strength. Not every battle could be like the one against the Noon Horse Escort Agency, where one could rely on intelligence to crush the opponent. "Brother Chi, are you sure?" This time, Lin Yi did not directly stop him. In his opinion, the upcoming battle against the Black Eagle Escort Agency might very well be a battle that would transform the Heavens Equal Escort Agency. As the young master, if Chi Wen-han were to personally take the field, not only would he be powerful, but he would also be able to greatly boost the morale of his men, greatly increasing their chances of winning. Of course. Chi Wen-han nodded solemnly and grinned. "Brotherling, I'll leave the command to you. As for the vanguard, just leave it to me." Considering the upcoming challenge of the head of the escort agency, they had to conserve their strength. Therefore, Chi Wen-han would definitely not let Lin Yi join them. Therefore, this time he would be leading the team himself. This was already the strongest formation that the Heavens Equal Escort Agency could muster. That's good. This battle concerns the future of the entire escort agency. Since Brother Chi is personally taking the field, this battle must be won. Also, Brother Chi, you must take care of your own safety. If anything happens to you, even if we win this battle in the end, it will not be worth it, Lin Yi reminded him. "Brotherling, do not worry. I know what I'm doing." Chi Wen-han nodded solemnly. "Good." Lin Yi immediately began to select his team members. This battle was of utmost importance. There was no room for mistakes. Therefore, he did not have any thoughts of conserving his strength. He immediately brought out the strongest formation he had. Including Chi Wen-han, who was at the Golden Essence level, there were a total of 3 Golden Essence level experts at the Golden Essence level and 2 experts at the peak of the late Golden Essence level. Of course, if they wanted to ensure that their strength was the strongest on paper, they could actually add another Golden Essence level expert. However, this person had dared to fight the Noon Horse Escort Agency. Although he was not injured, he had expended a lot of true chi. He would not be able to recover in a short period of time. Therefore, there was no point in forcing him to fight now. With such a strong formation, even if they were to face a prestigious escort agency like the Four Seas Escort Agency, they would still be able to put up a fight. If they were to face the Noon Horse Escort Agency, this formation would be able to crush them directly. There was no need for them to scheme. Seeing the list of participating escorts that Steward Song had handed over, Chi Mingyuan, who was sitting among the judges, was instantly stunned. "Nonsense!" Chi Mingyuan glared and immediately slammed the table, wanting to step off the stage to stop this. Although in order to ensure the fairness of the competition, as a judge, he was not allowed to step off the stage without permission, he could not care less now. After all, this was his only son, who he had high hopes for. Chapter 4457. If he lost the competition, he could still make a comeback. But if something happened to Chi Wen-han, who would he cry to? He was the only successor of the Heavens Equal Escort Agency. If even the successor died, what future would the agency have? Head escort agency, we can't always protect our young eagle under our wings. There will come a day when it will experience a storm. I think we should let Wenhan have a try. This is a rare opportunity. Housekeeper Song reached out to stop him. Old Song, why are you? Qi Mingyuan frowned and sighed. I understand this, but this kind of thing has to be done step by step. We can't put ourselves in such a dangerous situation all of a sudden, right? The Black Eagle Agency is not easy to deal with. Chief Escort, in my opinion, while this battle is dangerous, nothing will happen to Wenhan. After all, young Heroling is here, and you've also seen his ability to command on the spot. There won't be any problems. Butler Song, on the other hand, looked very confident. This is true. Qi Mingyuan hesitated. Lin Yi's presence gave him a reassurance. Even if he did not participate in the battle himself, just commanding on the spot should be enough to ensure Qi Wenhan's safety. In the end, he could only nod and say, "The world still belongs to the young." Old Song, we are all old. That's right. Our Heavens Equal Escort Agency is about to enter a new chapter. We have a bright future. Housekeeper Song nodded. Well said. A bright future. Qi Mingyuan's eyes flashed. He finally made up his mind and announced the name list of the Heavens Equal Escort Agencies, participating escorts. Seeing that the first name on the list was the young master of the Heavens Equal Escort Agency, Qi Wenhan, the crowd was in an uproar. After all the previous miraculous performances, especially when they defeated the aggressive Noon Horse Escort Agency without losing a single soldier, no one dared to look down on the Heavens Equal Escort Agency anymore. After all, they were not idiots. Even if the Heavens Equal Escort Agency did not display overwhelming strength, they had a solid record in front of them. They had no choice but to accept it. Now that they saw Qi Wenhan personally leading the team, the crowd did not look down on them as much as Lin Yi had expected. Instead, they were all in high spirits. Facing a strong opponent like the Black Eagle Agency, the Heavens Equal Escort Agency was finally going all out. Qi Wenhan. At this moment, in the Black Hawk Escort Agency's camp, there was a middle-aged man in a black coat with an eye-catching knife scar on his face. Seeing this, he could not help but be slightly taken aback. This person was the chief escort of the Black Hawk Escort Agency, Zhao Shaning. 5 years ago, the Yuantong Escort Agency fell apart overnight. In just a year, Zhao Shaning, who was originally just an ordinary escort leader of the Yuantong Escort Agency, took advantage of the chaos and rose to power. Not only did he successfully swallow up the various forces left behind by the Yuantong Escort Agency, but he also reformed the Black Eagle Escort Agency. After 3 years of development and expansion, his current strength was far greater than before. He was a formidable and ambitious character. Even the young master has been forced to come out. This shows that the equal of Heaven Escort Agency's strength is only so. Although they were lucky enough to become one of the top 5 escort agencies last time, it's a pity that a nouveau riche will always be a nouveau riche. They'll never be able to make a name for themselves. One of the escorts beside him said with a pout. The Heavens Equal Escort Agency has been one of the top 5 escort agencies for 5 years. In your eyes, it's just a nouveau riche. Then what is our Black Eagle Escort Agency? Zhao Shaning glanced at him. The escort leader was at a loss for words. Although his agency had been reformed from the Yuantong Escort Agency, strictly speaking, it was still an escort agency that had only been established for a few years. If he insisted on feeling superior to the Heavens Equal Escort Agency, he would be deceiving himself and others. The biggest difference between a rich and a nouveau riche is not in strength, but in the foundation and temperament. This Heavens Equal Escort Agency has only been established for a short 5 years, but it already has the temperament of a rich and powerful family. They're able to take things in at will, strategize against their enemies, and fight to the death. They're really not simple. Zhao Shanning exclaimed. For the past few years, he had been wholeheartedly trying to build the temperament of a rich and powerful family. Perhaps in the eyes of others, the Black Eagle Escort Agency was strong enough, but in his eyes it was far from enough. Especially now that he had seen the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency, the gap between them was even more obvious. Head Escort, since the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency is stronger than expected, should we proceed with the battle as planned? The escort leader who was in charge of directing the battle asked. No, this time I will personally direct the battle. If our Black Eagle Escort Agency wants to rise, we must defeat the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency. We must win this battle, not lose. Zhao Shanning's aura grew cold. The current Heaven's Equal Escort Agency had indeed earned his respect. However, respect was respect, and he could not go easy on them. In fact, the more this was so, the more he wanted to defeat them. An opponent like this deserved to be personally commanded by Zhao Shanning. While Zhao Shanning was observing the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency, Lin Yi, Qi Wenhan, and the others were also carefully observing the Black Eagle Escort Agency. Know yourself and know your enemy, and you will never be defeated. That person is the head escort of the Black Eagle Escort Agency. Lin Yi looked Zhao Shanning up and down. Whether it was against the Noon Horse Escort Agency or the Yongxing Escort Agency in the first round of the battle, he had only observed the participating escorts. He had never paid attention to the person commanding the battle. This time, however, was an exception. That's right. This person's name is Zhao Shanning. My father has a very high opinion of him, even higher than boundless seas. He is an ambitious and ruthless character, Qi Wenhan said, nodding cautiously. He does seem to be something else. Lin Yi nodded. After experiencing so many ups and downs, he had seen all sorts of people. He had quite a bit of experience when it came to reading people's faces. As the saying went, one's face was born from one's heart. This was not just a person's appearance, but also a person's temperament and demeanor. This Zhao Shanning, on the other hand, gave off an extraordinary aura. He was a classic example of an ambitious and ruthless character. As the two of them spoke, the participating escorts of the Dark Eagle Escort Agency, under the urging of the referee, had already left the arena. The 5 of them lined up in a row and stood on the arena, causing the entire audience to exclaim in surprise. The 5 participating escorts were all experts at the Golden Core Perfection stage. How generous! Even Qi Wenhan could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. The rules stated that only Golden Core experts could participate in the South Continent's Escort Agency Grand Meet. Sending 5 Golden Core experts at the Golden Core Perfection stage at once was already a dream lineup. In the past, only the overlords of escort agencies like the Four Seas Escort Agency could deploy such a lineup. Who would have thought that the Black Eagle Escort Agency would be so powerful? You're tuning in to the Thunder Spear YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.